You've been lied to about life. They told you that everything you want will come only if you keep chasing success, chasing approval, chasing answers. But if that were true, why do the people who never stop running still feel empty? Why do you, even after all your effort, still feel restless, caught in a storm of overthinking, always reaching yet never arriving? The truth is, everything you're searching for appears the moment you stop searching. When you let go, when you stop forcing, life has a way of giving you exactly what you need. This is the wisdom Buddhist stories have carried for centuries, not through complicated teachings, but through simple moments that reveal the deepest truths. Tonight, as you listen, something inside you will shift. The endless chase will begin to quiet. You'll feel the weight you've been carrying start to fall away, and when sleep comes, it won't just be rest, it will be a homecoming. Because when you stop searching, everything comes. This isn't just another audio to fall asleep to. This is the moment you realize you've been running in circles around what was always within reach. Are you ready to let it all come? Let's begin. And now we step deeper. You've heard the truth, that when you stop searching, everything comes. But how do we see it? How do we feel it in our own lives? The answers often arrive not as theories, but as small, timeless stories. They are quiet keys that open locked doors inside you. There was once a monk who walked through the forest until he reached a lake. He leaned over the water, wanting to see his own reflection. But the surface was disturbed, broken by ripples and restless waves. The harder he looked, the more distorted his face became. No matter how much he strained, clarity would not come. So he waited, still, and without realizing it, his body began to soften into silence. Minutes passed, and the ripples slowly disappeared. The lake grew calm, and in that stillness, his reflection returned, clear, whole, perfect, without any effort from him at all. This story holds a truth that most of us overlook in our daily struggles. We are always leaning over our own disturbed lakes. We want clarity, answers, direction. We keep demanding to see who we really are, where we are going, why we feel the way we do. But every time we demand, every time we strain, the surface of our mind becomes more agitated. The ripples multiply, and we begin to believe there is something wrong with us, when in reality the only thing missing is stillness. The monk's reflection came not because he chased it, but because he stopped, because he let the natural order of things settle itself. The mind, like water, does not need to be forced into clarity. It only needs space, quiet, and patience. The harder we push, the more it slips away. The moment we release control, what we sought appears on its own. Think about how often this pattern plays out in your life. You want an answer to a problem, so you think about it endlessly. Hours, sometimes days pass, and the answer hides itself. But then, when you walk away, when you take a shower, when you're about to fall asleep, the solution suddenly emerges, clear and simple. It wasn't that the answer wasn't there, it was waiting for the ripples to fade. The same happens with our emotions. When we are hurt, we keep turning the pain over in our heads, demanding it vanish. Yet the more we resist, the stronger it feels. Anger grows, sadness lingers, anxiety sharpens. The ripples are fed by our struggle. But if we allow the feeling to be, without fighting, we discover it has its own rhythm. Emotions rise and fall like waves. Left alone, they settle back into peace. The monk at the lake shows us that clarity is not achieved by aggression, but by surrender. That doesn't mean giving up on life. It means trusting that what is true will reveal itself when the mind is no longer shaking. The discipline is in learning to stop stirring the water with restless hands. This lesson becomes even clearer when we reflect on how much of life's beauty can only be seen when we are still. Think of watching a sunset. If you're rushing, distracted by your phone, the colors are nothing more than background. But the moment you stop, the moment your eyes actually rest, the sky unfolds into something breathtaking. The beauty was always there. Your attention simply wasn't quiet enough to catch it. Our culture teaches the opposite. It tells us we must constantly do, chase, achieve, prove. Even relaxation becomes a performance. But stillness is not inactivity. It is the highest form of awareness. It is the point where action no longer comes from desperation, but from a place of clear vision. The monk did not stop living when he sat at the lake. He began to see more than he had before. And isn't that what we truly want? Not more noise, but the ability to see clearly what already exists. Our reflection has never left us. It has only been hidden by the waves we create with our own searching. There is another dimension to this story that reaches into how we see ourselves. Most of us look into life as if looking into water, hoping to recognize ourselves. We wait for proof that we are enough, that we are valuable, that our existence has meaning. But when we search through restless comparison, through the distorted ripples of others' opinions, the image we find is twisted. We see a self that is incomplete, broken, never good enough. But the distortion isn't the truth. It's just the movement of the surface. When we stop searching for validation in the water outside us, when we allow silence to reveal what has always been within, we finally see ourselves as we are, whole, complete, without needing anything extra. The monk at the lake didn't create a reflection. He discovered it. The same is true for us. There's an ancient Buddhist teaching that says the mind is originally like clear water, pure, untouched, vast, but layers of thought, desire, fear, and memory are like mud stirred into it. The more we resist, the cloudier it seems. The practice is not about scrubbing the water clean. That only makes more ripples. The practice is about waiting with patience until the mud naturally settles at the bottom. Then the water clears by itself. This patience is what most of us are unwilling to accept. We want instant clarity, instant peace. But the monk shows us that true clarity cannot be rushed. It comes in its own time. The art is to wait with trust, to let the ripples fade on their own. And here is where the deepest treasure lies. When the reflection finally appears, you realize it was never missing. It was always present, simply hidden. Just like peace, just like happiness, just like love. They are not built by constant striving. They are uncovered when the mind stops disturbing its own surface. Notice what happens when you hear these words now. Maybe your breath has slowed. Maybe the tension in your shoulders has begun to loosen. This is not because you've achieved something new. It's because in this moment, your ripples are fading. The mind, given permission to rest, knows how to reveal its natural calm. In the life of the monk, this realization becomes the foundation of freedom. If clarity comes when searching stops, then the endless chase was never necessary. The answers, the reflection, the truth, all of it was already here. The only thing required was to allow the waters to settle. And as you drift deeper into this story, you may notice how your own restless searching has quieted, even if only for a moment. That quiet is the same lake, and your reflection is already forming. Not tomorrow, not years from now. Now, because when you stop searching, everything comes. What the monk discovered at the lake was more than clarity. It was the secret of waiting. When the ripples softened on their own, he learned that some truths cannot be forced, no matter how much we want them. And this is where the next story begins, because the lesson of stillness does not end with water. It continues in the soil where life hides, preparing in silence for years before it dares to be seen. A bamboo seed lies buried in the earth. Day after day, there is no sign of growth. The farmer waters it, tends to the soil, removes weeds, and still the ground looks empty. A whole season can pass, even many years, with no single green shoot rising into the air. Doubt creeps in. Maybe the seed was dead. Maybe the effort was wasted. But beneath the surface, something unseen is happening. Roots are spreading, weaving deep into the ground, building strength in silence. And then, one year, without warning, a sprout emerges. It shoots upward so quickly that it surprises everyone. What looked barren was never barren at all. The bamboo was preparing to grow tall, unshakable, and it could not have done so without its years of hidden work. This story strikes at the heart of our struggle with patience. We live in a world addicted to results, where progress is measured by how quickly it can be seen. If nothing happens right away, we panic. We doubt ourselves. We walk away from the soil we once believed in. Yet, real growth is not always visible. Sometimes the most important changes are the ones happening out of sight. Just because you cannot see the roots does not mean they are not there. Think about how often in your own life you've dismissed your efforts because they didn't give instant results. You studied for weeks and still failed a test. You practiced a skill but didn't feel improvement. You tried meditation, but your mind kept racing. It is easy to conclude that nothing is working. But what if those unseen moments were the very foundation of your future strength? The bamboo does not apologize for its silence. It trusts the hidden process. It knows that depth comes before height. The silence of growth teaches us that timing belongs to nature, not to our impatience. Bamboo cannot be rushed, and neither can healing, wisdom, or transformation. When we demand immediate evidence, we lose faith in the quiet work happening within. But if we endure, if we water the soil with consistency, the day will come when what was hidden rises into the light, and it will rise stronger than anything that tried to rush ahead. The story of the bamboo also teaches us about resilience. Its strength is not in stubbornness, but in flexibility. When storms come, bamboo bends without breaking. Its long preparation underground ensures that it is anchored so deeply that no wind can uproot it. Many of us want to stand tall right away, but without deep roots, the first hardship knocks us over. The years of invisible growth are not wasted. They are what make resilience possible. There is wisdom here for anyone facing silence in their own journey. Maybe you are working hard but seeing no change. Maybe you are healing from pain but still feel fragile. Maybe you are chasing a dream but the world shows no recognition. In those moments, you are the bamboo beneath the earth. You are gathering strength, extending roots, and anchoring yourself in ways you cannot yet see. The lack of results is not proof of failure. It is proof of preparation. In Buddhism, this patience is called trusting the unseen path. The practice is not about forcing enlightenment or demanding answers right away. It is about planting seeds of kindness, discipline, and awareness, and letting them grow in their own season. A seed cannot be pulled out of the soil to check its progress without killing it. You water it, you trust it, and you give it time. The same applies to your mind, your heart, your life. Growth in silence also teaches humility. We often want recognition, the visible sprout that proves our worth. But the bamboo is not concerned with applause. It grows where it stands, whether anyone notices or not. True strength does not require validation. It knows its value regardless of who is watching. When we live only for external proof, we remain fragile, like plants with shallow roots. But when we learn to grow quietly, we prepare ourselves for a strength that does not depend on others' approval. This lesson can also transform how we view failure. What if failure is not the end, but part of the silent preparation? Just as bamboo takes years beneath the ground, our setbacks may be part of the rooting process. They teach us endurance, adaptability, perspective. Each disappointment becomes another root, anchoring us deeper. Without them, our growth would be too fragile. The next time you feel like nothing is happening, ask yourself if you might simply be in your rooting season. Notice too how bamboo teaches balance. It grows tall but remains hollow inside. Its strength is not from being heavy or solid, but from being light and empty. In Buddhism, this emptiness is not a weakness. It is freedom. To be hollow like bamboo is to carry no unnecessary weight, no pride, no clutter. That emptiness allows flexibility, resilience, and peace. When we cling too tightly to ego or possessions, we become rigid. When we cultivate emptiness, we bend without breaking. Silence itself becomes a teacher here. In the modern world, silence feels uncomfortable. We fill it with noise, distractions, endless movement. But silence is the soil of growth. It is where roots stretch and truths emerge. When you sit quietly, it may feel as though nothing is happening. But deep within, your mind is forming clarity. Your spirit is grounding itself. Your future strength is being prepared. Just like the bamboo, silence is not the absence of growth. It is its foundation. The lesson reaches even deeper when we consider how bamboo grows together. A bamboo forest is not made of isolated stalks competing for sunlight. Their roots intertwine underground, supporting one another. If one stalk is weak, the others hold it upright. What looks like individual plants is actually one vast network. In the same way, our unseen growth often comes through connection with others. We may not notice it, but every conversation, every act of kindness, every shared struggle strengthens our roots together. This interconnected growth challenges the idea that we must achieve everything alone. The bamboo teaches that true strength is collective. You are not a single stalk fighting for survival. You are part of a vast forest, supported in ways you may not even see. Just because growth is invisible does not mean it is isolated. Beneath the surface, we are all connected. The patience of bamboo also speaks to the way we handle seasons of waiting. Waiting can feel like emptiness, like wasted time. But waiting is not passive. It is active preparation. When you are waiting for love, for healing, for opportunity, you are not standing still. You are deepening roots. The world may call it inactivity, but silence often carries the most important work. The seed beneath the soil is not idle. It is transforming in ways no one else can see. And when the bamboo finally emerges, it does not creep upward timidly. It rises with speed, shooting toward the sky. Years of hidden preparation make sudden transformation possible. This reminds us that breakthroughs often happen after long periods of quiet. What seems like sudden success is usually the result of years of unseen growth. Do not envy the sprout that grows overnight. Envy the bamboo that prepared for years and now stands unshakable. This perspective reshapes how we measure progress. Instead of asking, "What can others see?" ask, "What roots am I building?" Instead of rushing for quick results, trust the seasons of silence. Life is not a race for instant visibility. It is a process of becoming strong enough to endure, flexible enough to survive storms, empty enough to remain free, and interconnected enough to support others. If you are in a season where nothing seems to be moving, remember the bamboo. The silence of your growth may be the very thing making you unshakable. Trust the process, trust the soil, and trust the time it takes. Because the day will come when you rise, not fragile or temporary, but tall, steady, and beyond breaking. And you will know that the years of silence were not wasted. They were the foundation of everything that followed. And as this truth settles into you, the story of the bamboo flows naturally into the next lesson. For growth and silence are only one part of the journey. What happens when, after years of effort, you finally stop moving altogether and rest? That is where the traveler appears, sitting down on a simple bench, only to discover that what he was searching for was already with him. The bamboo teaches us that growth is not rushed, that strength is built in silence, and that what looks like stillness is often the deepest kind of preparation. But even when we learn patience, even when we let our roots spread unseen, another challenge appears. We tire ourselves with searching. We walk, we strive, we carry weight after weight, thinking the destination will finally give us rest. And yet, the more we chase, the further peace seems to drift. It is here the next story begins, with a traveler whose steps became so heavy that he could no longer move forward. The traveler walked endlessly, his feet cracked, his back aching from the burden he carried. He searched for a place that would give him shelter, comfort, and rest. Villages passed behind him, fields stretched endlessly, but nowhere felt right. His eyes kept scanning the horizon for something more, something better, as though peace was waiting at the end of the road. Eventually, his body gave way. He lowered himself onto a simple wooden bench by the roadside. There were no walls, no roof, no grand comfort, only the rough wood beneath him. Exhaustion took over, and he drifted into sleep. When he awoke, something had changed. His body felt lighter, his mind no longer racing. The stillness he had been chasing appeared, not because he found the perfect place, but because he stopped searching and allowed himself to rest. This story pulls back the veil on one of the greatest illusions of human life, the belief that peace exists only in the future, only after we find the perfect conditions. We convince ourselves that once we move to a better home, once we secure more money, once we fix every problem, then we will finally rest. Yet, the traveler's lesson is clear. Rest is not hidden at the end of the road. It is available the moment we stop running. We are taught to glorify constant movement. Productivity is praised. Exhaustion is worn like a badge of honor, and resting is often mistaken for laziness. But the body and the mind are not machines. They are more like instruments, and when we never pause, they lose their tune. The traveler shows us that rest is not a luxury. It is the very doorway to clarity. Without it, even the most determined journey leads to emptiness. When the traveler collapsed on the bench, he did not lose, he gained. He gained perspective, he gained energy, and most of all, he gained awareness that peace was already inside him. The bench itself was nothing special. The setting was not perfect. What mattered was that he stopped demanding peace from the world and allowed stillness to rise from within. This truth reshapes the way we see our own lives. How often do we sit surrounded by everything we once wished for, yet still feel restless? The house, the job, the relationship, the recognition, none of it guarantees rest. Because rest is not a condition of environment, it is a condition of the heart. The traveler had no bed, no roof, no security. Yet his rest was deeper than all of those things could provide. There is also a profound teaching here about simplicity. The bench was plain, overlooked by others, unworthy of notice, and yet it became the place of transformation. This reveals how often we dismiss the ordinary, expecting salvation only from the extraordinary. But the ordinary moments, the pause between tasks, the quiet of sitting still, the unnoticed space, can hold the deepest renewal. To overlook them is to miss what is already present. In Buddhist practice, this is why meditation is not about building something new, but about noticing what has always been here. When we sit in stillness, we are not creating peace, we are uncovering it. We are the traveler resting on the bench, finally seeing that what we were chasing has been within us all along. The lesson also addresses exhaustion that comes not from the body, but from the mind. Mental exhaustion often weighs heavier than physical fatigue. Overthinking, constant planning, endless comparisons, these drain us until even sleep cannot restore us. The traveler teaches that the cure is not in solving every thought, but in stepping out of the endless loop. When he slept on the bench, the world did not collapse. His responsibilities did not vanish, but his attachment to them loosened. That loosening opened the door to rest. And here lies a paradox. Stopping often takes more courage than continuing. We are so conditioned to keep going, to prove our worth through endless effort, that pausing feels dangerous. Yet every journey requires rest to continue. The traveler could not have walked further without stopping. Rest was not a break from the path. It was part of it. This truth also applies to emotional burdens. Many carry grief, anger, regret, like heavy packs on their backs, refusing to set them down. They walk with the weight, hoping that somewhere ahead the pain will lift. But the story tells us the weight lightens only when we stop. Not when we reach a new destination, but when we sit with what is here, breathe with it, and allow it to settle. The bench was not an escape from suffering. It was an invitation to face stillness, to let go of resistance, and to allow healing to begin. The story also whispers a truth about self-worth. We often believe we must earn rest. We tell ourselves, once I finish everything, once I achieve more, once I prove myself, then I can stop. But the traveler did not earn his sleep. He simply allowed it. In doing so, he discovered that rest is not a reward, it is a right. You do not need permission to sit down. You do not need achievement to justify stillness. The bench is always there, waiting, and yet the lesson does not end with sleep. When the traveler awoke, he realized the peace was within him. The bench did not give it. The environment did not supply it. His rest showed him what was already present. This is the deepest point of the story. We carry peace with us, but we only notice it when we stop disturbing it with endless motion. This discovery transforms how we approach our days. Instead of chasing peace, we can pause throughout the day to uncover it. A breath before speaking, a still moment before reacting, a short pause between tasks. These small benches along the roadside of our lives offer more than recovery. They offer a return to ourselves. Even in relationships, this lesson holds. Often, conflicts spiral because neither side pauses. Words rush, emotions boil, actions clash. But if even one person takes the bench, choosing to rest instead of push, space is created for healing. The bench is not only for solitary travelers, it is for anyone seeking peace in the middle of chaos. The story also speaks to those who feel lost. The traveler searched for a destination but never found it. His discovery was not in arrival, but in stopping. This tells us that purpose is not always ahead of us. Sometimes it is beside us, in the unnoticed bench we pass by every day. When we stop, we may realize we were never lost at all. To live this truth is to trust that rest is not weakness. In a culture that celebrates constant striving, choosing to rest becomes an act of rebellion. It is saying, my value is not in how far I walk, but in how deeply I can connect with myself in stillness. The traveler teaches that those who rest are not left behind. They are the ones who truly arrive. And so, the lesson of the traveler is not only about physical rest, but about surrender. It is the surrender of the chase, the surrender of the illusion that peace is out there. By stopping, by laying his head on the bench, he discovered that what he sought was already inside him. This is the quiet revolution of the story. Peace does not wait at the destination. Peace appears the moment you stop searching for it. The journey can continue, but it will never again be fueled by desperation. It will be guided by the calm that has always lived within. And as this story softens into you, the path continues forward. For even in stillness, life offers us new lessons. The traveler has shown us rest, but there are other truths waiting in the smallest details of existence. A single falling petal carries its own secret, and the next chapter unfolds when a monk learns to stop grasping and finally opens his hand. The traveler showed us that peace does not wait at the end of a long road, but reveals itself when the chase finally stops. That truth leads us naturally into another moment of quiet discovery, one not born of exhaustion, but of desire. For even when we learn to rest, our hands often remain restless, grasping for beauty, love, meaning, or recognition. And here enters the monk with a lesson, one that begins not with great events, but with something delicate drifting from a tree. A cherry blossom loosened from its branch and floated through the air. The monk reached out quickly, hoping to catch it before it touched the ground. Again and again he stretched his hand, fast and eager, but each time the petals slipped away. The harder he tried, the more he failed. Then, one day, he did something different. Instead of grabbing, he simply opened his palm and held it still. The petal, with no resistance, landed softly in his hand. The lesson here strikes at the root of how we approach life. We are conditioned to grasp, to cling, to secure what we desire before it escapes us. Whether it is love, opportunity, status, or happiness, we tighten our grip and chase with urgency. Yet, just like the monk and the falling petal, the more desperately we grasp, the more life slips through our fingers. When we open, when we allow, what is meant for us comes naturally. This story is not about passivity. It is not telling us to avoid effort. It is about alignment. There is a difference between chasing something in fear and creating the space for it to arrive. The monk learned that control was not the key, receptivity was. By opening his palm, he showed trust in the process, and that trust invited the blossom to rest where it was always meant to be. In our own lives, this lesson is visible in countless ways. Think of relationships. Many people cling tightly to those they love, trying to control every outcome, fearful of loss. But love suffocates under pressure. It is like the blossom, it drifts freely. If you reach with force, it slips away. If you remain open, it stays of its own choice. True love cannot be trapped. It must be received with openness. The same principle applies to opportunities. People chase recognition, success, or approval with frantic effort. Yet often, the greatest opportunities come not when we force them, but when we are still, prepared, and open. The job, the idea, the breakthrough, these arrive when we stop grasping and create space for them to land. The world responds not to desperation, but to calm readiness. This also touches on how we hold our own identity. Many cling to self-images, to labels, to achievements, as though grasping at petals in the wind. But identity is fluid. When we try to hold it too tightly, we suffer because life keeps changing. The monk's open palm is an image of freedom, of allowing yourself to be who you are in this moment, without clinging to the past or forcing the future. The deeper wisdom here lies in trust. An open palm shows faith that what is meant will arrive. It does not guarantee every petal will fall into your hand, but it teaches that the right ones will. This does not mean passivity or indifference. It means living with balance, putting in effort without being consumed by it, caring deeply without suffocating, desiring without demanding. This story also reveals something about timing. Every petal has its moment to fall. No matter how quickly the monk moved, he could not force the blossom into his hand before it was ready. In the same way, many of us try to rush outcomes. We want answers before they mature. rewards before we are ready to hold them. Life's timing, like the cherry blossom, follows its own rhythm. The open palm is not only about receptivity, but about patience. It waits without anxiety, trusting that the petal will arrive when the time is right. There is also a profound beauty in letting go of control. So much of human suffering comes from the illusion that everything must be managed, predicted, and secured. But no matter how skilled or strong we are, there will always be petals that slip through our grasp. By accepting this, we free ourselves from constant frustration. The open hand does not cling to what it cannot hold. It welcomes what comes and lets go of what does not. This is not defeat, but liberation. The monk's lesson can reshape how we experience everyday life. Think of creativity. Writers, artists, musicians often struggle when they force inspiration. They grasp desperately at ideas, but the harder they try, the more empty they feel. Yet when they relax, when they step away, when they open their minds like an empty palm, inspiration arrives naturally. The petal lands softly when we stop reaching frantically. Or think of inner peace. Many search for calm through endless techniques, tools, or distractions, grasping at every method. Yet peace is not caught by speed or struggle. It comes when we open, when we stop demanding, when we allow stillness to enter. Just as the monk discovered, the petal of peace cannot be forced. It must be received. This story also reminds us of the gentle nature of what we seek. A cherry blossom is fragile, light, easily disturbed. So too are the most precious things in life: trust, love, joy, presence. They cannot be held with clenched fists. They require openness, gentleness, patience. To hold them tightly is to destroy them. To hold them softly is to let them live. The practice of opening one's palm is also an act of surrender. Surrender here is not giving up. It is stepping into alignment with life's flow. It is saying, I do not need to control every detail. I trust that what belongs will stay, and what leaves was never mine to hold. This surrender does not weaken us. It frees us from the exhausting battle against reality. There is also a subtle teaching about gratitude. When the monk opened his hand and the petal landed, he received it as a gift. Not a possession, not a conquest, but a gift of the moment. Gratitude transforms everything we receive into enough. The grasping hand always wants more. The open hand is thankful for what arrives. Gratitude, like openness, makes us unshakable. In Buddhism, clinging is seen as one of the roots of suffering. We cling to possessions, to people, to experiences, and we suffer when they inevitably change or leave. The open hand is the antidote. It teaches non-attachment, not indifference, but freedom. You can love deeply, enjoy fully, care sincerely, without clinging. When the petal lands, you cherish it. When it drifts away, you let it go. This is how joy remains pure, uncorrupted by fear of loss. Even in loss itself, the monk's lesson holds power. When something precious leaves, we are tempted to close our fists tighter. But the truth is that loss is part of life's rhythm. Every petal falls. The open hand grieves, but it does not harden. It remains open for the next gift, the next moment, the next lesson. In this way, openness becomes resilience. The monk and the falling petal also illuminate the art of presence. The petal lands only in the palm that is here, not reaching forward or backward. This is the essence of mindfulness, being present enough to receive what is unfolding now. Too often, we miss life's blossoms because we are grasping at what has already passed or at what has not yet arrived. The open palm says, "This moment is enough." The beauty of this lesson is that it can be practiced in small ways each day. When someone speaks to you, instead of preparing your reply, open your attention and truly listen. When you eat, instead of rushing, open your senses to the taste, the texture, the gift of the meal. When you feel joy, instead of fearing it will end, open yourself to the fullness of the moment. These are all petals landing softly when you choose openness over grasping. And as you reflect on this, notice how your own body responds. Perhaps your shoulders relax, your breath softens, your hands unclench. This is the physical truth of the story. The grasping hand is tense, strained, exhausted. The open hand is relaxed, receptive, peaceful. One posture leads to suffering, the other to freedom. The monk shows us that life's greatest treasures do not come through chasing, clinging, or forcing. They arrive when we are open, patient, and trusting. The falling petal is not a test to be won, but a gift to be received. And when we understand this, we no longer live in fear of missing out. We know that what is meant will find its way to us, softly, in its own time. The falling petal revealed the truth of openness, that when we release the need to grasp, what is meant to come finds its way to us. Yet there is another side to openness, one that reaches beyond the hand into the very space of our being. It is not only about letting go, but about allowing emptiness itself to exist without fear. From that emptiness, something greater can arrive. This is where the story of the villager begins, with nothing more than an unattended cup left beneath the sky. One evening, a villager set down his cup outside and forgot it. It was empty, unused, unnoticed. Through the night, clouds gathered and rain began to fall, drop after drop. The cup slowly filled. By morning, what was once empty brimmed with water, clear and abundant. The villager saw that the very absence, the very emptiness, was what invited the fullness to come. The lesson here is profound. We often fear emptiness, treating it as a flaw or a weakness. To be empty feels like to be lacking, to be without meaning, to be incomplete. Yet emptiness is not a deficiency, it is an invitation. Just as the cup could only be filled because it was hollow, we too can only receive when we make space within ourselves. Without emptiness, abundance has no room to enter. This truth overturns the way we are taught to live. We are told to fill every moment with activity, every silence with noise, every part of our lives with possessions and achievements. But in that constant filling, we leave no space for what truly nourishes us. Like a cup crammed with stones, nothing new can enter. The villager's forgotten cup teaches that abundance arrives not in the crowded, but in the open. Consider how this applies to learning. A mind convinced it already knows has no space for wisdom, but when the mind admits its emptiness, when it accepts not knowing, it becomes receptive. In Buddhism, this is called beginner's mind, approaching life without preconceptions, open to surprise, willing to be taught. The fullness of wisdom flows into the cup that admits it is empty. The same is true in relationships. When we enter them filled with expectations, assumptions, and demands, there is no space for another person to truly arrive. But when we bring openness, when we leave room for mystery and discovery, love fills that space naturally. To be empty in this sense is not to be needy, but to be available, to create a place where connection can take root. There is also a lesson here about desire. Many chase abundance by accumulation, piling up possessions, experiences, and titles. But these do not satisfy because the cup remains crowded with grasping emptiness, paradoxically, is what allows genuine abundance. When we loosen attachment, when we let go of what clutters the heart, life pours into us in ways we never expected. Just as the rain filled the villager's cup, the universe fills the lives that make space for it. This story also shows us that abundance is not always earned through effort. The villager did nothing. He did not run after water. He did not struggle to capture it. He simply forgot the cup, and nature did the rest. This is not to say we should never act, but it reveals that some forms of abundance are gifts, not achievements. They arrive when we step out of the way, when we release control and allow life to pour into us. Many resist emptiness because it feels uncomfortable. Silence in a conversation feels awkward. A blank page feels intimidating. A pause in progress feels like failure. Yet these very spaces are where creation begins. Music is not only the notes, but also the silence between them. Writing is not only the words, but also the empty page that allows them to be seen. Life itself requires emptiness to breathe. Without gaps, without pauses, without hollowness, nothing new could emerge. This lesson deepens when we reflect on suffering. Pain often carves out spaces in us, leaving us feeling hollow. Loss, disappointment, grief, they create emptiness that feels unbearable. Yet over time, those same spaces often become the places where compassion, wisdom, and strength are born. The rain of life fills the hollows left by sorrow, turning them into reservoirs of depth. The villager's cup shows us that even our emptiness, painful as it may feel, is not wasted. It is preparation for a fullness we cannot yet see. There is also an environmental teaching here. The cup filled not from human effort, but from the sky. Nature provides when we allow it. In our drive to control, to force abundance, we forget that much of life's generosity comes freely. The rain does not ask for permission. It does not require payment. It falls because that is its nature. To live in harmony with this truth is to trust that life has its own rhythm of giving. Our task is not to command it, but to make space for it. This principle of emptiness also transforms how we see time. Many people cram every hour with tasks, leaving no pause, no room for reflection. But when time is left open, even briefly, inspiration and rest flow in. Creativity, clarity, and renewal arise not from overfilling, but from allowing space. A schedule with emptiness is not wasted, it is fertile. Just as the cup had to be empty to receive rain, our days must have openness to receive life's gifts. The villager's story also speaks to the importance of humility. To admit emptiness is to admit limitation. It requires the courage to say, I do not have all the answers. I cannot do everything myself. I need. This humility is not weakness. It is strength, because it opens us to receive help, guidance, and grace. The full cup resists, but the empty cup welcomes. There is a quiet trust in leaving a cup outside. You do not know if it will rain, how much, or when, but you allow the possibility. This is faith, not blind belief, but the openness to receive what comes. In life, we cannot predict when abundance will arrive. Our role is to prepare the cup, to create space, to remain open. The rest belongs to forces beyond us. This story also challenges our fear of being nothing. Many dread emptiness because it feels like insignificance, but emptiness is not nothingness. It is potential. It is the fertile ground from which everything grows. The seed must be buried in empty soil. The cup must be hollow to hold water. The space must be clear to invite light. Emptiness is not the absence of life, but the womb of it. To live this truth is to stop running from emptiness. Instead of filling every silence, we sit with it. Instead of fearing the hollow spaces in our lives, we honor them as sacred. Instead of clinging to what no longer serves us, we let go, trusting that what is meant will arrive. This is the essence of the villager's lesson. Emptiness is not to be feared, but to be welcomed. And when we begin to live this way, abundance arrives in unexpected forms, not always as possessions or wealth, but as clarity, as peace, as love, as the right people and opportunities flowing into our lives. The rain that fills us may not look like what we expected, but it will be exactly what we need. The open hand receives the petal. The empty cup receives the rain. Both teach us the same truth in different ways. What we seek is already on its way, if only we create the space for it to arrive. The empty cup taught that when space is created, life pours into it with its own generosity. Yet even when we leave room, we often still fall into the urge to force outcomes, to throw ourselves again and again into endless effort, as if success could only come through struggle. This is where the story of the fisherman begins. A man who gave everything to his work, but found nothing until he let go of the very tools he believed were necessary. For years the fisherman rose before dawn, pushed his boat into the water, and cast his nets. Each throw was filled with hope, yet each retrieval was heavy with disappointment. His arms ached, his back bent, his heart sank with every empty net. Still, he tried again, day after day, believing that only through more effort, more struggle, would the fish finally come. But the water gave him nothing. One evening, with the weight of exhaustion pressing on him, he lowered his nets for the last time. He no longer had strength to continue. He left the nets on the shore, sat quietly by the riverbank, and surrendered. As twilight deepened, fish began to swim near, gathering at his feet, as if they had been waiting all along for him to stop forcing and start allowing. This story speaks to the human obsession with control. We are taught that results are tied directly to effort, that success is always earned by pushing harder. And while discipline and persistence matter, life is not a machine that produces on demand. The fisherman discovered that relentless grasping often drives away what we seek, while surrender creates space for it to arrive. His nets, symbols of control and striving, had become barriers. Only when they were set aside did abundance appear naturally. There is wisdom here for those who exhaust themselves in pursuit of fulfillment. Many throw nets into career goals, relationships, or personal ambitions with unending intensity. The more they chase, the more distant the reward seems. The truth is not that effort is useless, but that effort without balance becomes self-defeating. The river does not yield to force, it responds to flow. The fisherman found that letting go was not failure, it was alignment with the rhythm of life. The story also uncovers the hidden cost of striving. Years of casting nets left the fisherman weary, not only in body, but in spirit. Striving consumes energy, leaving little space for joy, presence, or gratitude. Many people live this way, caught in cycles of constant reaching, only to collapse into emptiness. The fisherman's release was more than physical rest. It was the end of inner struggle, and in that end, life came to meet him. This lesson reaches into how we view achievement. Society praises constant productivity, telling us that stopping is laziness. Yet stopping is often the doorway to wisdom. The fisherman's greatest catch came not from his skill or persistence, but from his willingness to rest. The paradox is clear. Abundance does not always arise from pushing, but from pausing. There is also a teaching here about trust. By laying down his nets, the fisherman admitted he was not in control of the river. He accepted that life has its own timing, its own generosity. This is faith in its truest sense, not blind belief, but the courage to let life unfold without constant interference. Trust allowed him to see abundance where striving had blinded him. The story carries a message about resistance as well. Nets are designed to trap, to hold, to capture. But the more the fisherman tried to trap the river's gifts, the more they eluded him. In contrast, when he released control, the fish approached freely. This mirrors how opportunities, love, and peace often slip away when we chase them too tightly, yet appear naturally when we create openness. Force builds resistance. Surrender invites flow. There is a deeper layer in how the fish responded. They did not appear out of pity, but because the environment had shifted. The stillness of the fisherman created harmony. The same principle applies to us. When we are restless, anxious, or desperate, we create an energy that repels what we want. When we are calm, grounded, and open, life moves toward us. The fish at his feet were not a miracle. They were a reflection of his surrender. This story also highlights the importance of knowing when to stop. Persistence is a virtue, but without wisdom, it becomes obsession. The fisherman's years of fruitless casting show how easy it is to confuse effort with progress. Sometimes the bravest act is to stop, to recognize that continuing the same struggle will not yield a different result. Stopping opens the door for a new way, a new possibility, a new gift. There is also a lesson about receptivity. The fisherman always looked for abundance in the nets, but when he stopped, abundance came to him directly. This reveals how we often limit ourselves by expecting fulfillment in specific forms. We think happiness will only come through certain achievements, certain people, certain outcomes. But when we release these rigid expectations, life surprises us. Abundance often waits in places we are too busy to notice. This story also speaks about humility. Casting nets again and again was an attempt to dominate the river, to bend it to human will. Laying down the nets was a recognition of limits, an acceptance that nature cannot be controlled. Humility is not weakness, but wisdom. It allows us to participate in life's flow instead of fighting it. The fisherman's humility was what brought him closer to abundance. This principle is visible in creative work as well. Artists, writers, thinkers often struggle when they push too hard for inspiration. The harder they force it, the more it escapes. But when they step back, rest, and trust the process, ideas flow naturally. Creativity, like the river, cannot be trapped. It must be invited. The fisherman's experience mirrors every moment of inspiration that arrives after surrender. The story also touches on our relationship with time. Years of casting nets produced nothing, yet one evening of surrender revealed abundance. This reminds us that time spent striving without alignment can feel wasted, while moments of stillness can yield transformation. It is not the quantity of effort, but the quality of presence that matters. The fisherman's long struggle prepared him for the lesson of surrender, and that single evening changed everything. There is also a teaching here about gratitude. When the fish gathered at his feet, the fisherman could have cursed the irony, lamenting the wasted years, but gratitude turns the moment into wisdom. His struggle was not meaningless. It was what made the gift so clear. Gratitude allows us to see that even in fruitless seasons, life is preparing us to receive. The fisherman's story also reminds us of the importance of alignment with nature. The river has its own cycles, its own timing. To fight against them is to suffer. To move with them is to find ease. The fish did not respond to force, but to stillness, because stillness is in harmony with the river's flow. This lesson extends to every part of life: health, relationships, work. When we align with natural rhythms, rest and activity, giving and receiving, we find balance. When we ignore them, we find struggle. This story also opens a window into the concept of non-attachment. The nets represented attachment, the need to catch, to own, to control. Letting them go freed the fisherman not only from exhaustion, but from the illusion that his worth depended on what he could capture. Non-attachment does not mean apathy. It means freedom. When he stopped clinging, he discovered abundance that was already present. The fisherman's experience also reveals something about identity. For years, he defined himself as one who catches fish. When he failed, his sense of self collapsed. But when he let go of that identity, he discovered a deeper truth: that abundance is not about what we do, but about how we open ourselves. Letting go of roles and labels can reveal a deeper sense of being, one not dependent on constant achievement. Even in spirituality, the lesson holds. Many people treat spiritual growth like fishing, casting practice after practice, trying to capture enlightenment. Yet the essence of awakening is not caught. It is revealed when striving ends. The fisherman's evening of surrender mirrors the moment in meditation when effort falls away and clarity simply arises. Enlightenment, like the fish, comes not through force, but through stillness. The story also illuminates how abundance is not always material. The fish at his feet were real, but the deeper gift was peace. His struggle ended, his exhaustion lifted, his heart recognize that life supports those who let go. True abundance is measured not only in what we gain, but in the freedom we feel when striving ceases. The fisherman gained not just fish, but wisdom, and that wisdom is the greater treasure. The story of the fisherman continues to echo long after the nets are set aside. It tells us that surrender is not defeat, but a deeper form of strength, that abundance is not always the result of relentless action, but often the gift of stillness, that life does not respond to force, but to openness, and that when the endless striving ends, what we longed for may already be waiting quietly at our feet. The river answered only when the fisherman stopped fighting it. That soft turn, from forcing to allowing, opens a new door. There is a deeper way to live than catching and holding. It is to let something larger move through you, to become a passage instead of a possession. The next lesson begins in a quiet hut with a flute that did nothing, and yet offered more than any striving ever could. A wooden flute hung from a beam, dusty and still. Days passed, seasons turned, and no one raised it to their lips. Then a wind slipped through the doorway, crossed the room, and found the hollow body with its small carved openings. Sound bloomed, pure, weightless, startlingly tender. No hand pressed its keys, no lungs strained, yet the music carried depth and light, as if the air itself had learned to sing. This picture reveals a truth most people overlook. The greatest power often arrives not from effort, but from alignment. The flute did not push. It did not plan or prove. Its gift came from its shape, its emptiness, its readiness to be used. In that readiness, there is a kind of genius that work alone cannot manufacture. Skill matters, but form matters more. The form of a life open enough to be played by a larger rhythm. To live like the flute is to understand the difference between pressure and passage. Pressure says, I must make this happen. I must control every outcome. Passage says, let the right current move through me, and I will carry it faithfully. One tires the heart. The other renews it. The fisherman learned this at the river's edge. The flute shows it in sound. The secret of the flute lies in its hollowness. It can sing only because it is not full. The same is true for us. When we are crowded with noise, opinions we cling to, grudges we polish, fears we replay, there is no space for music to move clear the channel, and life speaks through you in ways you could never have planned. This clearing is not a single act, but a way of being, honest enough to tell the truth, humble enough to listen, light enough to let go. Notice the small holes along the flute's body. Each opening looks like a flaw, a missing piece. But those openings are how the instrument finds its voice. In the same way, the places in you that once felt like wounds can become passages for compassion and wisdom. Pain that has been faced without denial becomes a tone hole the wind can use. Closed hearts make dull sounds. Open hearts carry melodies that comfort others without trying to impress them. The hut matters too. No grand stage, no crowd, no spotlight. Beauty does not require attention to exist. It only asks for conditions that let it arise. A quiet room, an open window, a bit of wind. This frees you from the hunger for approval. The most important music of your life may happen in rooms where no one applauds. If something true moved through you, the moment stands complete. There is craft here as well. A flute must be carved, sanded, tuned. Emptiness alone is not enough. Shape matters. In the same way, a human life benefits from practice, daily habits, clear speech, honest work, gentle attention, steady rest. Shape the instrument. Then, when the wind of opportunity or inspiration arrives, you do not scramble, you resound. Practice does not force outcomes. It prepares a body that can carry them when they come. Breath is the bridge between the seen and the unseen. The wind that played the flute came without invitation, yet you can meet it with readiness through your own breathing. Slow, honest breaths teach the nervous system to soften its grip. A softened nervous system allows perception to widen. In widened perception, you notice the openings, the small chances to speak kindly, the delicate turn that avoids harm, the quiet impulse to create. These are winds. Miss them, and the room stays silent. Meet them with a well-shaped life, and music appears. The difference between noise and music is not volume, it is relationship. Noise fights the space it occupies. Music honors it. Most of the song the wind made came from what it did not fill. The pauses, the intervals, the restraint. This teaches restraint in speech, in response, in ambition. Leave room in your sentences and your days. Let silence be a partner, not a problem. People trust those who do not rush to fill every gap. Trust is a kind of harmony. It makes conversations sing. Consider creative work. When people force ideas, their efforts feel stiff. When they clear space, go for a walk, wash dishes, sit quietly, ideas begin to flow, as if the world was waiting to show them. The flute never chased a tune. It was tuned to receive. Creative power is less about seizing and more about listening, less about pushing and more about yielding to the shape the moment already wants to take. Yielding is not weakness, it is precision. Leadership follows the same law. A heavy hand creates compliance, not music. A leader who becomes a channel for shared purpose, who frames silence as thinking space, who lets the best idea win, regardless of source. This leader becomes like the flute on a breezy day. People contribute because there is room to breathe. The melody belongs to the group, not the ego. The practice of being a channel begins with cleaning the instrument. Ask yourself, what blocks the wind in me? Resentment clogs, envy tightens, pretending drains. The cleaning tools are simple: telling the truth kindly, making amends when you're wrong, resting when your body asks, letting go of what is not yours to carry, spending time with those who sharpen your goodness. Each act is a small sanding of the inner wood. Boundaries are part of tuning. A flute cannot sing if smashed by careless hands. Being a channel does not mean being a doormat. It means knowing which winds you allow. Not every gust deserves your song. Say yes to currents that align with your values. Say no to pressures that twist your shape. A clear no protects the tone of your yes. The wind's music arrived without a plan. This steadies the heart that fears uncertainty. You cannot schedule every grace, but you can design a life that meets grace well. Keep the doorway clear, a tidy space, a simple routine, a few non-negotiables that keep you whole. Simplicity is not ascetic performance. It is acoustics. Cluttered rooms muffle sound. Cluttered lives muffle meaning. There is a wisdom in where the flute was placed. Hanging, not hidden. Still, not sealed. Many hide their gifts for fear of judgment, but a gift stored away cannot be played. Hanging it in the open does not mean shouting for attention. It means saying, "When the right wind comes, I am here." That posture invites the right currents to find you. Life tests availability more than talent. Let's speak of timing. Wind varies. Some days there is none. Other days it rattles the rafters. Patience keeps you from despair when the room is quiet. Humility keeps you from pride when the song is strong. Both protect your sound. Patience says, "No wind today is not proof I am useless." Humility says, "Music today is not proof I am the source." The source is larger than either drought or storm. Service gives the sound purpose. The flute does not ask, "How do I become famous?" It asks nothing. Its usefulness is its meaning. A person who measures days by usefulness instead of attention finds a different level of peace. Useful hands sleep well. Useful words echo longer than loud ones. To be useful, ask simple questions. What eases someone's burden today? What clarifies a hard choice? What restores dignity in a small way? Each answer is a note. Grief changes tone. If the wood of your life has known fire, the grain holds a story. These marks do not ruin the instrument. They darken its color, deepen its resonance. People who have suffered and stayed kind carry a sound that comforts others without performance. The wind loves such wood. It trusts it. Your scars are not shame, they are acoustics. Not every movement is music. Some gusts are agitation, powered by panic or anger. Learn the difference by the aftertaste. The true wind leaves you cleaner than before. The false wind leaves you unsettled. Trust how your body tells the truth. Jaw tight, chest clenched, breath shallow means the current is wrong for you. Step back, close the window. Wait for air that does not poison your tone. Let's bring this to everyday acts. When you write a message, leave a pause before pressing send. In that pause, the wind rearranges the sentence into something kinder, clearer, more exact. When you are asked for advice, breathe once more than you want to. In that extra breath, the other person often reveals the real question. When you plan your day, schedule margins as if they were tasks. Those margins are the open doorway where the unexpected good can enter. The hut teaches another quiet rule. Marvel is ordinary. The most beautiful things do not need impressive settings. Do your work where you are. Fold the laundry like a craft. Wash the bowl as if finishing a song, not because chores are sacred in theory, but because your attention turns them into tone. Attention is a conductor. Wherever it points, life stands up straighter. You are not responsible for creating the wind. That sentence dissolves a lifelong fatigue. Your task is to become sound wood, open, tuned, honest, so that when the wind does blow, it can use you well. This takes away the terror of dry spells. Dry spells are for carving, sanding, oiling, resting. When you understand seasons in this way, you stop calling winter a failure. You call it preparation. Generosity changes the key. A tune that exists only for self-praise squeaks. A tune offered to soothe, teach, or lift has warmth. The ear can tell. People may not articulate it, but they lean towards sounds that carry goodwill. Goodwill cannot be faked for long. It comes from remembering that what passes through you is a gift, not a trophy. There is also a lesson about scale. The wind played one flute in one hut, but air moves across mountains and seas. What flows through you belongs to a larger weather. Your act may seem small, the pattern it joins may be vast. A kind word ends one argument and prevents a harder one later. A steady choice at work guards 3 people from burnout down the line. Do not belittle the note you are given. Play it cleanly. Let the larger song place it. When blame storms through the door, let your openings stay precise. Blame whistles harshly when it finds wide, sloppy gaps in the instrument. It cannot grip a life shaped with care. Precision in how you speak and keep your word is a form of tuning that protects your tone. People hear steadiness and stop shouting. This is social music. Harmony created not by dominating the room, but by offering a pitch that others can safely match. Silence is not the enemy of music. It is its frame. Friends who sit together without filling the air often find their bond strengthening. Partners who do not rush to fix each other's pain make space for real healing. Parents who leave room for a child's own thoughts raise clear thinkers. A teacher who pauses mid-lesson lets the insight land. Silence is a skilled collaborator. There is a paradox in credit. If you must be known as the source, you will strangle the song. If you can be content as the passage, the song arrives more often. This does not erase your uniqueness. The flute's tone belongs to its grain, its length, its openings. Another instrument will never sound exactly the same, but the applause is not the point. Fidelity is the point. Fidelity to the current, to truth, to timing. Contemplative practice trains fidelity. Sit each day, even briefly, not to achieve an experience, but to become more honest. Watch thoughts rise and pass without wrestling. Notice the impulse to force and soften it. Notice the urge to escape and breathe once more. Over time, this creates an interior hut that welcomes wind without being shattered by it. Stability grows from small, repeated returns. Kindness keeps the wood from cracking. The harsher your self-talk, the more brittle your instrument becomes. Brittle instruments break under strong music. Treat yourself as a caretaker would treat an heirloom. Clean it, protect it from extreme heat, fix small splits before they widen. This is not indulgence, it is stewardship. You are keeping safe the vessel that many future songs will require. Community acts like a chorus of flutes. Alone, you can carry a line. Together, you can carry a landscape. Find people who value tone over noise, integrity over image, patience over performance. Sit with them. Work beside them. Let their steadiness tune you and offer yours in return. In storms, a chorus holds notes the solo cannot sustain. When conflict enters, return to breath before word. The first wind that wants to move through you in conflict is usually fury. Do not let that gust claim your openings. Wait for the current that contains both truth and care. Speak from there. Music survives the conversation when truth and care share the same sentence. Do not be afraid of mellowing. Early songs in life are often bright, fast, eager. With years, tones deepen. Slow, low notes carry power that shines. Do not elders who have winnowed their wants down to the essential produce a sound that settles rooms. Seek their company. Let their economy of word and movement teach you how little is needed to say something true. If you must choose between being impressive and being clear, choose clear. Clarity carries further. The wind prefers clear paths. It tires when forced through tangled claims and complicated masks. Set down what tangles you. Speak the sentence that says what you mean. Walk the step that matches your values. Clarity is kindness to the future. When joy arrives, do not brace against it. Many mute their own instruments because they fear the note will end. Let joy pass through at full volume while it's here. A held-back song is not safer. It is thinner. You were not carved to be shy with light. When grief returns, give it room as well. A full instrument plays both without shame. There will be days when you hear nothing. Keep the hut open. There will be nights when the wind is too strong and the song wobbles. Let it pass without calling yourself names. There will be mornings when a single soft phrase moves through you and changes a stranger's day. Do not claim it. Do not dismiss it. Bow inward and keep the doorway clear. The fisherman learned that laying down the nets let the river come close. The flute shows that when a life is hollowed, tuned, and held in the open, the world's breath finds it. This is not theory. It is a practice of small choices, cleaning one channel, protecting one boundary, telling one truer sentence, resting 5 minutes longer, leaving one space in the calendar, placing one gift where the wind can use it. Let the larger air carry what you cannot. Let your part be faithful, simple, and exact. When the right current arrives, you will not need to announce it. Rooms will feel it. Faces will soften. Your own chest will loosen, the way wood does when it remembers it is part tree, part song. And in that loosening, the life you have been working so hard to manufacture will begin, quietly, to play itself through you. The flute revealed that the deepest music is not forced, but allowed, that a hollow body and a still room can hold more than any efforting breath. Yet there is another truth, one even softer. Wisdom does not always need strain to enter. There are times when the mind wrestles, clinging to every word, trying desperately to grasp, and yet misses the essence. And there are times when the heart is so open that even in sleep it receives. That is the lesson of the monk who closed his eyes while others strained to hear. The hall was full. Disciples sat in rows, backs straight, ears sharpened to catch each phrase of the teaching. They scribbled notes, nodded earnestly, leaned forward so as not to miss a single word. Among them was a monk who leaned back, folded his arms, and drifted into sleep. Some frowned, whispering about laziness, about disrespect, but the teacher, seeing him doze peacefully, only smiled and said, "Even in dreams, his heart has already heard." This story cuts through the common idea that wisdom is earned only by effort. Effort has its place, but the heart is not a ledger. Truth does not always enter through the ears or the pen. Sometimes it bypasses the restless mind and settles directly into the center of being. The sleeping monk is not praised for his drowsiness, but for the depth of his readiness. He had trained himself in such a way that even rest was receptive. His heart was aligned with the teaching before the words were spoken. This raises a question we rarely ask. What if real understanding is not about collecting more information, but about becoming more attuned? Many of us chase knowledge like possessions, stacking books, podcasts, lectures, degrees. Yet we remain anxious, restless, unchanged. Knowledge that sits only in the head hardens into clutter. The monk's sleep shows that wisdom is not storage, but resonance. When the heart is tuned, even silence, even dreams carry teaching. There is also a lesson here about trust. The other disciples strained because they feared missing something, feared falling behind. Fear drove their focus. The sleeping monk embodied trust, that what was true would not escape him, that wisdom does not vanish if one breath is missed. This trust relaxed him enough to rest. The teacher recognized the depth of that trust, and that depth is itself a teaching. The story also challenges the worship of effort for its own sake. Many live as though life's worth depends only on how hard they work, how diligently they strive. Yet, constant strain often closes the very channel it hopes to open. In spiritual practice, a tense mind blocks the flow of insight. Relaxation, surrender, a certain softness allows wisdom to sink deeper. The monk asleep was not careless. He was open in a way that strain cannot achieve. This truth is seen in daily life. Think of conversations. When someone listens with tight concentration, formulating responses, analyzing every word, they often miss the heart of what is being said. But when someone listens with ease, with openness, without trying to grasp, they often understand more deeply. The monk's rest is like that openness, a reminder that being present does not always look like straining. This also touches on the balance between conscious and unconscious learning. The mind works tirelessly even when we are unaware. Seeds planted in wakefulness continue to grow in dreams. The monk's heart was fertile ground, so even as his conscious mind rested, the seeds of teaching rooted themselves. This is not permission for laziness, but recognition of the mysterious ways understanding works. Some lessons are absorbed not by force, but by allowing time, silence, and trust. There is a deeper teaching here about surrender to the body. While others fought drowsiness, forcing themselves to stay awake, this monk listened to his body's need and allowed rest. He did not fear judgment. He trusted that the truth was larger than appearances. In honoring his body, he honored the teaching itself, for true wisdom does not reject our humanity. It moves through it. The teacher's smile is part of the lesson. Instead of scolding, he affirmed the monk's readiness. Teachers know that wisdom is not measured by posture, but by transformation. A disciple could stay awake every night, memorize every phrase, and still miss the essence if their heart is closed. Another could rest peacefully, yet carry the truth naturally into action. The teacher's smile told the others, "Do not mistake performance for depth." There is something liberating in this story. It suggests that you do not need to exhaust yourself to be worthy of wisdom. You do not need to hold every word in fear of being left behind. You need only to keep your heart open, your life honest, your trust steady. Then, even in rest, wisdom will find you. This does not mean neglect, but balance. Too much effort distorts. Too much passivity dulls. The middle path is readiness without strain. This story also shifts how we view presence. Presence is not always rigid attention. Presence is alignment. The monk was present even in sleep because his whole being was oriented toward the truth. Just as a compass needle points north, whether watched or not, his heart pointed toward the teaching, whether awake or asleep. True practice sets that inner orientation. After that, presence is not effort, but nature. There is also a lesson about humility. Others judged him for sleeping, assuming superiority because they were awake. But the teacher's words revealed that appearances deceive. Wisdom does not always show on the surface. Those who appear diligent may be anxious inside. Those who appear careless may already carry peace. The story warns us not to measure depth by outward effort alone. This principle reaches into modern life. People fill their calendars, stretch their hours, strain every nerve to prove their seriousness. Yet burnout, anxiety, and emptiness follow. Meanwhile, those who move with balance, who rest when tired, who trust that not everything must be forced, often live with more clarity and impact. The sleeping monk teaches us to redefine seriousness, not as tension, but as sincerity. This story also touches on integration. Many attend lectures, read books, repeat practices, but the teachings remain separate from their daily choices. They hear, but do not embody. The sleeping monk embodied without strain. His life was already the teaching, so the words were not a burden. Integration means the truth becomes part of who you are, not something you chase. Then learning becomes effortless. Consider dreams themselves. Dreams weave fragments of life into symbolic stories. They show what the heart is working through beneath awareness. The teacher's remark, even in dreams, his heart has already heard, acknowledges this. Wisdom does not vanish in unconsciousness. If the heart is tuned, even dreams reinforce it. This reveals the depth of transformation. It is not limited to waking effort, but saturates the whole being. The monk's sleep also reveals the kindness of the teaching itself. True wisdom does not punish exhaustion. It does not demand perfection. It meets you where you are, even in rest, even in weakness. The teacher's smile showed that compassion is part of the lesson, that wisdom belongs not only to the alert and the strong, but also to the weary who trust enough to rest. There is a counterintuitive beauty here. The very act that looked like missing out, sleeping during a teaching, was in fact proof that nothing essential could be missed. Life's truths are not fragile. They do not slip away because of one missed word. They return again and again in speech, in silence, in dreams, in daily life. When your heart is oriented toward truth, you cannot miss it. It will keep arriving until you are ready to embody it. The lesson also invites a softer approach to practice. Instead of treating spiritual growth like a competition, it invites gentleness. Gentleness does not weaken discipline, it makes it sustainable. The monk who rested was not less devoted. His devotion was quieter, steadier, less frantic. This kind of devotion lasts because it does not burn itself out. This story also highlights the difference between memorization and wisdom. The monks who strained may have remembered every phrase, but still lacked transformation. The sleeping monk may not have remembered the exact words, but his life already reflected them. Wisdom is not in storing, but in embodying. Knowledge fills the mind. Wisdom fills the being. There is also a lesson in patience. Growth does not always show immediately. Others might have left the teaching frustrated, feeling they had not grasped enough. The sleeping monk did not worry. He trusted that the seeds planted would sprout in their own time. Patience transforms the pressure to learn into the joy of unfolding. This teaching reaches into relationships as well. Often, people strain to prove love, forcing gestures, pushing words. Yet love is most deeply felt when it flows naturally, without strain, like a dream that arises unbidden. The monk's rest mirrors this truth. Sincerity carries more weight than performance. The story of the monk asleep during teachings continues to echo because it whispers to a world addicted to striving that rest, trust, and openness can carry wisdom more deeply than constant effort. It asks us to let go of fear that we will miss what matters, and instead to trust that when the heart is ready, the truth finds its way in, whether in waking hours, in silence, or even in dreams. The monk who slept through the teachings revealed that wisdom does not always enter through tension and strain, but through a heart already tuned to truth, even in rest. That softness of being points toward a deeper lesson. Not only must the mind loosen, but life itself must be allowed to move. Holding too tightly, even to what feels safe, can keep us from the path meant for us. This is where the story of the villager begins. A man with a boat he feared to lose, and a rope tied too tightly to the shore. The villager lived by the river, and his small boat was his greatest possession. It carried him to markets, ferried him to friends, and brought him across the waters that sustained his village. Afraid that the current would take it from him, he tied it with strong knots, wrapping the rope around the post again and again until it seemed immovable. Each night he checked it, pulling on the rope, assuring himself that it could not slip away. Yet the tighter he tied it, the more the boat stayed where it was, unmoving, locked against the flow of the river. One day, weary of holding on, he loosened the rope and let the water carry him. To his surprise, instead of drifting into danger, the river took him exactly where he needed to be. This story cuts to the root of attachment. We cling tightly to what we believe secures us. Relationships, possessions, roles, routines, fearing that if we loosen our grip, we will lose everything. Yet the very clinging becomes the prison. The boat tied too tightly is safe, but it goes nowhere. Its purpose is not to remain bound to the post, but to travel. By loosening the rope, the villager discovered the paradox. Freedom, not control, brought him to where he was meant to be. The lesson here is not to abandon responsibility, but to recognize the difference between care and control. Care ties the boat lightly, enough to honor it, but ready to release control binds so tightly that life itself cannot move. Many of us bind ourselves in similar ways. We hold on to plans so rigidly that we miss opportunities. We cling to certainty so desperately that we cannot adapt. We grip relationships so fearfully that love itself suffocates. The rope is not wrong. The knots are the problem. The river in this story is not chaos, but flow. It represents the movement of life, unpredictable yet purposeful. The villager feared it, but when he finally trusted it, he realized it had always known where to take him. This is the essence of surrender, not giving up, but giving over. To untie the boat is to trust that life carries wisdom greater than your own fear. This truth reshapes how we see security. We spend much of our lives trying to make things permanent: jobs, homes, identities, possessions, believing permanence equals safety. But permanence is an illusion. The river moves whether we like it or not. By tying ourselves too tightly to the shore, we resist the inevitable, and resistance creates suffering. Real safety lies not in clinging to the post, but in learning how to move with the current. The villager's act of loosening the rope also teaches courage. It is not easy to let go of what has defined your sense of control. To release the knots is to face uncertainty, and uncertainty is uncomfortable. Yet courage is not the absence of fear, it is the willingness to move despite it. By loosening the rope, the villager stepped into uncertainty, and there he found direction. This story also illuminates the danger of stagnation. A boat tied forever to the shore rots. It was built to float, to journey, to carry. In the same way, when we hold our lives too tightly, they stagnate. Dreams wither, creativity dries up, joy fades. Life requires movement. Growth requires release. The river cannot teach you if you refuse to leave the dock. There is a lesson here about trust in timing as well. The villager's release did not lead to aimless drifting, but to arrival. Life has its own timing, its own currents. By loosening his grip, he discovered alignment with those rhythms. Many of us fight against timing, rushing when patience is needed, delaying when action is called for. Yet, when we trust the current, it carries us into timing better than we could design. This truth applies even to pain. Often we hold on to wounds, replaying them, gripping them as though they define us. But holding tightly keeps us bound to the shore of suffering. Loosening the grip allows the current of healing to carry us forward. This is not forgetting. It is trusting that the river knows how to transform pain into wisdom. The story also addresses identity. The villager saw himself as the one who secured the boat, the one who protected it. But when he untied it, he learned that his role was not to control, but to travel. Many of us hold identities too tightly. Roles at work, titles, labels, reputations, fearing that loosening them will erase us. But often, loosening reveals a larger identity, not the one who controls, but the one who flows. There is a quiet truth about love here. Love cannot thrive when tied too tightly. Fearful attachment strangles it. To loosen the rope is to trust the other, to give space, to let the relationship move. What returns after freedom is stronger than what was trapped. Love, like the boat, travels best when given room to float. The story also mirrors creativity. An artist who ties themselves too tightly to one style, one expectation, one outcome, finds their work stiff and lifeless. But when they loosen the rope, allowing experiments, failures, new directions, the current of inspiration carries them to discoveries they could not have planned. Creativity is a river, not a post. The act of loosening is also an act of humility. It admits that you are not the master of the river. You are a traveler upon it. Humility allows you to trust forces larger than yourself. Without humility, the rope stays tied, the knots grow tighter, and fear masquerades as responsibility. With humility, you can say, I will care, but I will not cling. I will guide, but I will not control. This principle also changes how we approach change. Many resist change because it feels like the river pulling us from shore. Yet, change is not theft. It is movement. The villager feared losing his boat, but by releasing it, he discovered purpose. Change does not erase us. It carries us. Loosening the rope allows change to reveal where we need to go. The river's current also shows us that letting go does not mean drifting without direction. The water does not flow aimlessly. It follows its own path, shaped by the land, guided by gravity, moving always toward the sea. When we release control, we may fear we will drift endlessly. But the river carries intention built into its nature. Trusting it allows us to discover a destination we could never have plotted. There is a teaching here about energy. Holding tightly consumes enormous energy. Checking, guarding, worrying, knotting. Loosening releases that energy. The villager, once exhausted by his vigilance, found freedom in surrender. In our lives, much of our fatigue comes not from what we do, but from how tightly we grip what we cannot control. Release brings energy back. Even spiritually, the story holds power. Many approach practice like tying knots, clinging to rituals, rules, identities, thinking these will secure awakening. But awakening comes when the knots loosen, when we release even the desire to control the path. Then, like the villager's boat, we are carried exactly where we are meant to go. The boat untied from the shore is more than a story of one man. It is a mirror. Every one of us has ropes, habits, fears, attachments. We tie too tightly. We call it safety, but it is stagnation. The courage to loosen, the trust to let the current move us, is what carries us into the life waiting beyond the dock. The boat, untied from the shore, revealed that holding too tightly keeps us from being carried to where life intends us to go. Letting go allowed the current to guide, showing that freedom comes not from control, but from trust. And yet, there is another layer to this journey. What we often reject as a burden may already hold the gift we are searching for. What looks like an obstacle may be the very place of rest and connection. This is the heart of the story of the stone that travelers once despised, but a single monk turned into something valuable. On a dusty path, travelers walked day after day, and in the middle of that road lay a large stone. Most cursed it under their breath, kicking at it, pushing it aside, or stumbling over it in frustration. To them, it was only a hindrance, another difficulty on a long, weary journey. One monk, however, did something different. Instead of resenting the stone, he sat down upon it. He allowed his body to rest, and soon others joined him. What was once seen as a nuisance became a seat, a gathering place, a gift hidden in plain sight. This story pierces into how we respond to difficulties. Life places heavy stones in our path, setbacks, disappointments, delays, losses. Most people react with anger, wishing them away, treating them only as interruptions. But the monk's choice shows another way, to meet the stone not as an enemy, but as a possibility. By shifting perspective, what once felt like an obstacle can become support. There is wisdom here about acceptance. Resisting what already exists only deepens suffering. The stone was not going to vanish because the travelers cursed it. Their resistance wasted energy. The monk accepted its presence and found use in it. Acceptance is not resignation. It is clarity. It allows us to see potential where frustration blinds others. This lesson transforms how we meet inconvenience in daily life. Waiting in a long line, sitting in traffic, dealing with delays. These are modern stones. Most grow restless, curse the time lost, clench with impatience. But those moments can become seats if we allow them. A line becomes time for reflection. Traffic becomes a chance to breathe. Delays become openings for gratitude. The stone does not change, the meaning does. The monk also shows us the power of pause. By sitting on the stone, he did not rush past the difficulty. He allowed it to become a place of rest. Many problems feel unbearable because we refuse to pause. We push harder, kick further, striving to move faster. But when we pause, the very weight can hold us. The pause is not failure. It is renewal. There is also a teaching about leadership here. The monk did not declare himself a leader. He did not demand others follow him. He simply shifted his relationship with the stone, and others naturally joined. True leadership often begins this way, not with commands, but with example. By seeing potential where others see only burden, you create space for others to rest. The seat was not only his, it became communal. This story speaks about perception itself. Two people can face the same stone. One sees frustration, the other sees support. The difference is not in the stone, but in the mind. This reminds us that suffering is often shaped more by perception than by circumstance. Change the lens, and the experience transforms. The monk's wisdom was not in moving the stone, but in seeing it differently. There is another depth here about humility. Many rejected the stone because it did not fit their idea of usefulness. But wisdom does not dismiss what seems lowly or inconvenient. It learns from everything. The stone, ignored and despised, became the very place of rest. Life often works this way. What we overlook can become our greatest support when we approach it with openness. The gathering that formed around the monk reveals the social dimension of this wisdom. Rest attracts others. When one person chooses peace instead of resentment, it creates space for community. The travelers who once cursed the stone now found gratitude because someone showed them another way. Our choices ripple outward. When we rest on our obstacles instead of cursing them, we teach others without words. This lesson applies to pain as well. Pain is often a heavy stone we wish to kick aside, yet pain can become a seat of compassion. Those who have suffered deeply often become the ones others gather around, because they can offer comfort, presence, and wisdom. The very burden becomes a place of service. Pain does not need to be glorified, but it can be transformed. The story also teaches us about resourcefulness. The stone was not built as a seat. It had no obvious purpose, yet the monk saw possibility beyond the surface. Resourcefulness means using what life offers, even when it does not look like what you expected. Too often, we wait for perfect conditions before we act. But wisdom sees usefulness in the imperfect. The monk did not ask for a chair. He sat on the stone. This also challenges the belief that solutions must be complicated. The monk's act was simple. He sat. No elaborate plan, no sophisticated tool, just a shift in attitude. Many of life's problems do not require complexity, but simplicity. The stone became a seat, not because of change in the stone, but because of a change in approach. There is also a teaching about gratitude here. When the travelers joined the monk, they felt grateful for what they once cursed. Gratitude often arises when perspective shifts. The same stone that drew frustration became a source of relief. Gratitude is less about what we receive and more about how we see what is already there. The monk's act also reflects adaptability. Life rarely presents us with perfect conditions. If we demand comfort before we can rest, we may never rest. Adaptability means finding peace even in the imperfect. The stone was hard, uneven, heavy, but it held him. The ability to rest on imperfect surfaces is a strength. It allows life to support us in unexpected ways. This story connects to resilience. Resilience is not avoiding stones, but learning to use them. Each difficulty can either drain us or support us. The monk's resilience was not in removing hardship, but in transforming it into rest. This resilience is available to all of us when we stop resisting reality and start working with it. The monk's choice also points to creativity. Creativity is not always about creating something new, but about seeing the old differently. The stone had always been there. What changed was the way he engaged with it. Creativity is perspective turned into action. It is the willingness to try another way. This teaching also reveals the potential of presence. By sitting on the stone, the monk became fully present in that moment, and his presence invited others. Presence itself is magnetic. When we stop rushing and settle, others sense it. The monk did not preach. His stillness preached for him. The stone becoming a seat also holds a spiritual teaching about the nature of obstacles. In Buddhist thought, obstacles are not enemies, but teachers. Each one carries the possibility of awakening if we meet it rightly. The stone taught the monk to rest, to see differently, to share space. In this way, the obstacle became part of the path. There is a lesson here for relationships too. People often become frustrated by each other's flaws, their heaviness, their resistance, their difficulty. Yet, when we choose to sit with them rather than fight against them, connection grows. Acceptance does not mean enabling harm, but it does mean allowing others to be human. Sometimes the very traits we see as obstacles can hold unexpected gifts. The story also reflects patience. The stone did not move. The monk accepted it as it was. Patience means meeting the moment without forcing it to change first. When we stop demanding that life look different, we find ways to rest within it. Patience turns even difficulty into possibility. Finally, the story reveals the hidden abundance of life. What we dismiss as useless may already contain what we need. The monk's wisdom was in recognizing that abundance hides in the ordinary, in the overlooked, in the inconvenient. The stone was not new, but it became new through perception. Life is full of such stones. The question is whether we will curse them or sit upon them. The stone that became a seat revealed how what we resist may already contain what we need, that obstacles are not always barriers, but hidden forms of support. Yet there is a deeper layer to this unfolding path, one that moves from the weight of stone to the gentleness of light. For not all lessons are about effort or transformation. Some are about realizing that what we thought was missing has been with us all along. This is where the story of the candle begins, a simple object standing in darkness, unaware of the light that already surrounded it. In the quiet of an empty temple, a candle stood tall but unlit. Its wax body and untouched wick seemed useless in the vast shadows. Night after night it stood there, silent and forgotten, convinced that it was incomplete without flame. But when the morning sun rose and the temple filled with golden light, the candle understood something profound. It had never been abandoned. It had never been without illumination. The light was always present. It only needed to see differently. This story reveals the illusion of lack. The candle believed itself dark, powerless, dependent on someone else to ignite it. Yet the arrival of dawn showed that the temple was already full of light. We too often think we are incomplete, waiting for something outside ourselves to spark our worth or purpose. But the truth is that we are already surrounded by light. The belief in absence blinds us more than the darkness itself. There is a teaching here about perception. The candle had not changed when the sun rose. What changed was its awareness. In the same way, many of our struggles are not solved by gaining something new, but by realizing what is already present. Peace, love, clarity. They do not need to be imported from elsewhere. They are woven into life itself. When our awareness shifts, we see that the temple is already lit. This story also speaks to the tendency to compare. A candle in the dark may look at torches, lamps, or fires and think, "I am nothing until I burn like them." Yet the sunrise dissolves the need for comparison. When the greater light appears, all are bathed in the same glow. In our lives, the obsession with measuring ourselves against others blinds us to the abundance we already share. The sun does not ask which candle is worthy. It shines on all. The candle's realization also touches on identity. For so long it defined itself by its unlit wick, by what it lacked. But in the sun, it saw that its worth was not in flame, but in presence. Many of us define ourselves by what we believe we are missing: success, approval, love, certainty. But our value is not determined by what we lack. It rests in simply being part of the greater light. There is a spiritual truth here about connection. The candle thought it was alone in darkness, yet the rising sun revealed it was never separate from light. In the same way, we often feel isolated, cut off, forgotten. But we are never truly apart from life, from truth, from the larger whole. The sense of isolation comes from perception, not reality. The dawn always comes, revealing what was hidden but never absent. The temple itself matters in this story. It held the candle patiently, not discarding it for being unlit. This teaches that life holds us even in our unawareness. We may feel useless, broken, unworthy, but we are carried through seasons of darkness until awareness returns. The temple does not judge the candle, it simply waits with it. This story also transforms how we understand waiting. The candle waited for someone to strike a match, but that need was an illusion. The waiting ended not with an act, but with revelation. In our lives, we wait endlessly for success, for recognition, for love, for happiness, believing they will arrive from outside. Yet often, what ends the waiting is not something new arriving, but our eyes opening to what has always been here. The rising sun in this story also points to the power of natural cycles. Darkness was not permanent. Morning was always destined to come. In the same way, our periods of confusion or despair are not eternal. They are part of a cycle, and light returns. Trust in the cycle allows us to endure the night without despair. The candle's lesson is not that darkness is false, but that it is temporary. There is also a teaching about surrender. The candle did not light itself by force. It did not struggle. It simply stood, and when the sun came, it received. Surrender does not mean passivity, but openness. It means ceasing to fight against reality and allowing life to reveal what was hidden. The candle's transformation came not through effort, but through readiness to see. This story can reshape how we see self-worth. Many people feel inadequate, as if something essential is missing. But like the candle, their worth is not defined by flame, but by presence in the temple of life. The sun shines whether or not they see it. Realizing this dissolves the endless chase for validation. Worth is not earned, it is recognized. The candle's realization also touches on gratitude. In the dark, it may have cursed its emptiness, but in the light, even its unlit form was honored, bathed in beauty. Gratitude arises when we stop focusing on what is absent and begin to see the abundance already present. Gratitude turns even an unlit candle into a symbol of completeness. This story also carries a message about belonging. The candle stood alone, yet when the sun rose, the whole temple was united in light. Belonging is not something we earn by becoming more. It is revealed when we awaken to the truth that we are already part of the greater whole. The candle belonged all along. It simply needed to see it. There is another depth here about the nature of truth. Truth does not depend on recognition. The temple was full of light the moment the sun rose, whether the candle realized it or not. In the same way, reality exists independent of our perception. We may feel lost, broken, separate, but the larger truth of our wholeness remains. Awakening is not about creating truth, but about seeing it. The candle also teaches about gentleness. The sun did not strike it, did not demand or scold. It simply filled the room with light, and that was enough. Growth often happens in this way, not through force, but through gentle illumination. Harshness may demand change, but gentleness invites it. The candle's awakening was not through pressure, but through kindness. This story also speaks to the illusion of loneliness. Many people feel they are walking in darkness, unnoticed. Yet the sun rises on all. No one is truly abandoned, though the night may trick us into believing so. The candle's awakening reveals that companionship, love, and connection surround us, even when unseen. Finally, the story carries a teaching about faith. The candle could not know when dawn would come, but it came nonetheless. In life, faith is not certainty of details, but trust in the larger rhythm. Night is followed by day. Absence is followed by presence. Darkness is not the end, but the prelude to light. The candle teaches us to trust that even in the darkest temple, the sun is already on its way. The candle in the dark temple revealed that what we think is missing is often already present, that light surrounds us even when we believe we are abandoned. Awareness itself is enough to dissolve the illusion of emptiness. Yet, there is another truth that follows closely behind. Once we realize we are already held by abundance, the natural response is to give, not forced, not calculated, but as naturally as light fills a room. This is where the story of the tree begins, a quiet being that offered shade without ever asking for anything in return. On a long road, a weary man stumbled and collapsed beneath the branches of a great tree. The sun had been merciless, his body heavy with exhaustion, his mind clouded by thirst and fatigue. Without a word, the tree extended its canopy, covering him in cool shade. It asked nothing, demanded no repayment, made no announcement of its generosity. It simply gave, because that was its nature. The man rested, revived by the effortless gift, and rose again with gratitude in his heart. This story shines a light on the essence of giving. In much of human life, giving is tangled with conditions. We give to be acknowledged, to be praised, to receive something in return, but true giving does not calculate. It flows naturally, like the shade of the tree. The tree does not keep score, does not measure worthiness, does not withhold from the undeserving. It gives because to give is what it is. The lesson here is about effortlessness. Many think generosity must be dramatic, heavy, or sacrificial, but the most transformative gifts are often the simplest: time, presence, a kind word, an open hand. The tree does not strain to create shade. It exists, and its existence blesses others. In the same way, when we live authentically, our presence itself can become nourishment. We do not need to force it. We only need to be aligned with what is natural in us. This story also speaks to humility. The tree does not boast about its gift. It does not seek recognition. Its giving is quiet, unnoticed, often taken for granted. Yet those who rest beneath it are changed. In our lives, the most powerful forms of generosity are often invisible. A parent working silently, a friend listening without interruption, a stranger offering space in silence. These do not demand acknowledgement. They simply give, and that is enough. The man's exhaustion reminds us of why such giving matters. All of us walk under a heavy sun at times, burdens of grief, fear, loneliness. A simple act of generosity can feel like life itself in those moments. Just as the man revived under the tree, people revive under the kindness of others. Often it is not a grand solution that saves us, but small mercies offered without demand. The story also teaches us about abundance. A tree that shades one traveler shades all. Its gift is not diminished by sharing. Generosity is not subtraction, but multiplication. When we give freely, we do not lose. We join a cycle where more is created. Love given does not run out. Kindness shared does not weaken us. Like the tree, we find that in giving, we reveal our true strength. This lesson also touches on non-discrimination. The tree shaded the man not because he was worthy, but because he was present. It did not ask for his name, his wealth, his reputation. It simply gave. True generosity does not measure or separate. It offers to whoever comes near. This challenges the way humans often attach conditions to kindness. The story invites us to move closer to the impartiality of nature, to give without judgment. The effortless giving of the tree also points to sustainability. Many resist generosity because they fear depletion, but true giving does not drain, it renews. When we give from abundance, from what flows naturally, we are not diminished. The tree does not collapse from offering shade. It thrives as it does so. In the same way, when we align with what we can give freely, whether encouragement, patience, or skill, we do not exhaust ourselves. We live in harmony with our nature. The man rising with gratitude teaches us the reciprocal side of generosity. While the tree asked nothing, gratitude awakened naturally in the receiver. Gratitude is not demanded but born when giving is pure. In human life, when generosity is genuine, gratitude flows without force. It may not always be spoken, but it roots deeply in the heart of those touched. There is also a lesson about presence. The tree was there, rooted, steady. Its gift was not in action, but in presence. Many underestimate how much simple presence matters: to be steady in someone's life, to remain available, to be a refuge in times of strain. This is shade. You do not need to solve everything. Sometimes, simply being there is the greatest generosity. The effortless giving of the tree also mirrors compassion. Compassion does not ask whether suffering is deserved. It responds because suffering is suffering. The man beneath the branches may have been a stranger, yet his pain was enough to awaken the tree's gift. When we move beyond judgment into compassion, we too give shade wherever we see suffering. This story also challenges the transactional mindset that dominates much of human interaction. The world often teaches that every gift must be repaid, every kindness earned. But the tree's gift cannot be repaid. It is beyond transaction. This invites us to give without tying ourselves to outcomes, without needing control. When generosity is free, it liberates both giver and receiver. The lesson reaches deeper when we consider the tree's patience. Shade is not created in a day. It comes from years of growth, of standing through storms and seasons. The gift that seems effortless is the result of long alignment with life. In the same way, our effortless giving often comes from the work of shaping our character over time. Patience, forgiveness, steadiness, these become natural gifts when we have cultivated them quietly within. The story also speaks about dignity. The tree did not rescue the man with pity. It offered shade with dignity. True generosity uplifts without belittling. It does not make the receiver feel small. This is a vital part of giving, to offer in such a way that the other feels honored, not indebted. The tree gave without making the man feel lesser. He rose, not only rested, but strengthened. This story can also reshape how we view power. True power does not dominate, it supports. The tree is strong not because it controls, but because it shelters. In a world that often confuses power with force, this lesson is urgent. The strongest people are not those who can demand, but those who can give without losing themselves. Finally, this story shows that generosity is a form of alignment with the larger flow of life. Trees give shade, rivers give water, the sun gives light. When we too give without demand, we join this larger rhythm. We become part of the harmony of existence. Generosity is not separate from life. It is life flowing through us. The tree that gave shade without asking reminds us that true giving is not about cost, effort, or recognition. It is about being so aligned with who we are that our presence itself becomes a gift, that others are revived simply by being near. It teaches that generosity does not need to be forced, and that often the greatest gifts are those we give by simply existing in truth and openness. The tree that shaded the weary traveler showed that real generosity is effortless, that the deepest form of giving requires no announcement, no demand, no exchange. From that lesson of quiet abundance, we move toward another truth just as essential, that clinging to what we think we are can keep us from realizing what we already belong to. The story of a single raindrop reveals this with piercing clarity. A drop suspended in the sky, afraid of the fall, unaware that letting go would carry it into something far greater. A raindrop trembled on the edge of a cloud. Around it, countless others released themselves, streaming downward in silver arcs. But this one clung tightly to its place. To fall felt like death, like an end. It feared the loss of itself, feared the ground, feared disappearance. For a time, it resisted, holding on with all its fragile strength. But gravity is patient, and eventually it could resist no longer. The drop released, and in that release, what it dreaded most became its liberation. For when it touched the earth, it did not vanish. It merged into a stream, then a river, and discovered it was not lost but expanded, part of something vast and unending. This story speaks directly to the human fear of letting go. We cling to identities, to possessions, to roles, believing that release means erasure. But much like the raindrop, our individuality, while precious, is not the full truth. Beneath the fear of dissolution lies a greater belonging. The drop's fall was not its destruction, but its transformation. It ceased to be separate and became part of a living whole. The lesson begins with our fear of change. We resist transitions because they threaten the stability of who we believe we are. The raindrop's hesitation mirrors our own reluctance to leave behind jobs, relationships, or versions of ourselves that feel familiar. Yet, holding on only prolongs anxiety. The fall, when it comes, reveals that change does not annihilate us. It reshapes us into something wider. The raindrop also speaks to mortality. Death is the great fall we fear most, the moment of release we cannot control. To the ego, death feels like the end, like disappearance. But many traditions, including Buddhism, teach that life is not ended but transformed, that the self merges back into a larger flow. The drop does not cease when it falls. It becomes the river death, then is not destruction but return. There is also a lesson here about trust. The raindrop resisted because it did not trust the process. Yet the law of gravity is unbreakable, and the cycle of water is eternal. Its fall was never random. It was part of a rhythm as old as the earth. In the same way, much of life's fear arises from mistrust of its deeper patterns. To trust is to see that we are carried even when we do not understand. The fall may feel frightening, but it leads us exactly where we need to go. This story also speaks about belonging. Alone in the cloud, the drop believed itself separate. But when it fell, it discovered connection beyond imagination. It was never meant to remain solitary. In the river, it was joined by countless others flowing together toward the sea. We too are not made for endless isolation. Our separateness is an illusion. To release is to rediscover our place in the whole. There is another depth here about freedom. The raindrop clinging to the cloud was trapped by its fear. Its existence was small, tense, confined. Only in letting go did it find movement, expansion, purpose. Clinging often feels like safety, but is actually imprisonment. Freedom arrives not by holding tighter, but by opening the hand. This truth applies to love as well. Many cling to those they care for, afraid that release means loss. But love that clings suffocates. Love that releases allows expansion. Just as the raindrop found the river, relationships deepen when they are freed from fear. To let someone be is to trust that connection flows beyond possession. The raindrop also teaches about identity. Alone, it thought itself small and fragile. In the river, it became unstoppable, carving valleys, nourishing fields, flowing toward the sea. Our identities, when clung to, limit us. But when we loosen them, we find capacities far beyond what we believed. Letting go of "I am only this" allows us to become more than we imagined. The story speaks, too, about surrendering control. The drop could not choose whether or not to fall. Its resistance only created suffering. Many of our struggles are the same, fighting inevitabilities, refusing to accept seasons of change, gripping tightly to what must pass. Surrender does not mean apathy. It means ceasing to fight what is beyond us, and in that ceasing, discovering peace. There is a spiritual teaching here about unity. The drop, once separate, discovered it was always part of something larger. Its separation was temporary, a matter of perception. We, too, are expressions of a whole, individual, yet inseparable. Awakening is the recognition that we are not isolated. Drops, but the river itself, briefly shaped, eventually returned. This story also challenges the obsession with permanence. We crave permanence as proof of safety, but permanence is an illusion. Clouds form and dissolve, rivers flow and shift, drops fall and merge. Life is movement, not static preservation. The raindrop teaches that clinging to permanence only intensifies fear. Accepting impermanence reveals beauty. The drop was beautiful as a single bead, and just as beautiful as part of the river. The act of falling also reveals something about courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move despite it. The raindrop trembled, but it still fell. Life asks this of us again and again, to step into the unknown, to leave what is familiar, to trust that in release, something larger awaits. The river the raindrop joined is not only water, but symbol of collective life. When we release, we discover we are part of a greater current, family, community, humanity. Our actions ripple outward, joining others, shaping the world. Alone, we are fragile. Together, we are force. This story also points to humility. The drop thought itself the center of its own small world, clinging as if its fate were supreme. But in the river, it discovered it was part of something vast. Humility is recognizing that we are not the whole, but part of the whole. This recognition frees us from the burden of self-importance. We can rest in being a part, not the entirety. There is also beauty in the cycle itself. What fell as a raindrop into the river will one day rise again as vapor, return to the cloud, and fall once more. Nothing is lost. The drop's fear of disappearance was unfounded. Life cycles endlessly, birth, death, return. Trusting this cycle eases fear. We are not gone when we release. We change form and continue. The raindrop story also challenges the way we define success. It thought success meant holding on, avoiding the fall. But its true fulfillment was in letting go. In our lives, success is often framed as accumulation, control, dominance. Yet, fulfillment often lies in surrender, in joining, in serving something larger. The river nourishes because the drops release themselves. This truth also touches on forgiveness. Holding on to resentment feels like safety, like preservation of the self, but resentment keeps us bound to the cloud. Forgiveness is letting go, allowing the heart to fall into freedom. In forgiveness, we discover we are not diminished but expanded, part of a flow larger than the injury. Even in creativity, the lesson holds. Writers, artists, thinkers often cling to ideas, afraid to release them into the world. But once shared, they merge into the larger stream of human thought, expanding far beyond their origin. The drop does not lose itself in the river. It gains movement it never had alone. The story also reveals something about peace. The raindrop's fear created tension. Release created calm. Many of our anxieties dissolve not by solving, but by surrendering. Peace often comes not through conquest, but through yielding, through saying yes to what already is. Finally, the raindrop's transformation is a reminder of trust in life itself. Life is not out to annihilate us. It invites us to join, to expand, to become part of something larger. Our fear says, "I will be lost." Life answers, "You will be found in the whole." The drop, once trembling, discovered it was not alone, but carried forever by the river's embrace. The raindrop that released its fear and surrendered to the fall showed us that letting go is not the end, but the beginning of belonging, that what feels like loss is often transformation into something greater. Yet there is another truth waiting just beneath this one. Sometimes we shape, strive, and force so hard to become something else that we forget the value of simply being as we are. Where the raindrop discovered freedom in release, the potter discovered peace in stillness. This is the story of clay that revealed its wholeness, not through endless shaping, but through being left untouched. A potter sat at his wheel, hands heavy with frustration. He molded the clay, pressing and twisting, determined to form the perfect vessel. Each time it cracked or collapsed, leaving him discouraged. He broke apart his work, started again, only to meet the same result. Hours turned to days, The wheel spinning, the clay soft beneath his hands, yet never enough for his restless vision. Exhausted, he finally stopped. He left the clay alone, untouched on the wheel. In that silence, in that pause, he saw what had been hidden. The clay itself was already complete. It did not need to become anything to be whole. This story brings us to the heart of our endless striving. So often we are like the potter, shaping and reshaping ourselves, convinced we must be molded into something better before we are worthy. We try to perfect our bodies, polish our identities, control our lives into flawless forms. Yet the harder we press, the more cracks appear. The untouched clay reveals a different wisdom. We are not broken, needing fixing, but whole in our essence, complete even before shaping begins. The first teaching here is about the futility of perfectionism. The potter's frustration mirrors our own when we demand flawlessness. Perfectionism promises satisfaction, but delivers endless dissatisfaction. No matter how much effort we invest, the result feels inadequate. The clay collapses, not because it lacks potential, but because the pursuit of perfection denies its natural form. In life, this endless striving leaves us exhausted, unable to rest, blind to the wholeness already within us. This story also speaks to acceptance. By leaving the clay untouched, the potter discovered its beauty as it was. Acceptance does not mean resignation or apathy. It means seeing clearly without forcing change. The untouched clay is a metaphor for our own being, precious before achievement, valuable without performance. Acceptance liberates us from the illusion that our worth depends on constant reshaping. There is also a lesson here about rest. The potter's breakthrough came not in action, but in stillness. Our culture glorifies productivity, urging us to always be shaping, improving, producing. Yet many of the deepest insights arrive only in rest. Rest reveals what striving obscures. The untouched clay teaches us that stopping can be more transformative than constant effort. This truth reshapes how we see failure. The potter's broken vessels might have seemed like evidence of inadequacy, but they were steps toward realization. Failure showed him the limits of control. Without those cracks, he may never have paused to see the clay's inherent wholeness. In our lives, failures often point us toward the same truth, that we do not need to be remade to be worthy. The untouched clay also reveals the illusion of identity. The potter wanted to shape it into a vessel, to give it a name, a purpose. But clay is not worthless before becoming something else. Its value is not dependent on a role. We, too, often believe our worth lies in the identities we craft: worker, parent, achiever, creator. But beneath all labels, we remain whole. When stripped of identity, what remains is still complete. This story carries a spiritual truth about essence. In many traditions, the essence of being is already pure, already whole. Effort does not create it. Effort only obscures it. Meditation, for instance, is not about building something new, but about uncovering what has always been there. The untouched clay is a mirror of this essence, whole before effort, complete without shape. The story also teaches humility. The potter believed he could impose his vision onto the clay, forcing it into perfection, but his control only led to collapse. Humility is recognizing that life does not need to bend entirely to our designs. There is wisdom in letting things be, in honoring their form rather than forcing our own. There is a lesson about gentleness here as well. The potter's pressing hands broke what could have remained whole. Gentleness, by contrast, allows things to reveal themselves naturally. In our own lives, gentleness with ourselves can prevent cracks that harshness creates. To hold ourselves lightly, without pressure, is to honor our wholeness. This story also reshapes how we view growth. Growth does not always mean adding more, shaping more, achieving more. Sometimes growth is subtraction, release, seeing that nothing was missing to begin with. The untouched clay is not the absence of growth, but the presence of truth. There is another depth about presence. When the potter stopped shaping, he became present enough to see what was already there. Striving often pulls us into the future, into what could be. Presence anchors us in what is. And in that presence, the clay revealed its wholeness. In our own lives, presence reveals that we are already complete in this moment, not in some imagined future. This story also addresses the burden of comparison. The potter likely compared his vessels to others, to imagined ideals. But the untouched clay was incomparable, unique in its simplicity. We too lose peace when we measure ourselves against others. Comparison demands reshaping. Acceptance reveals wholeness. The untouched clay can also be seen as a lesson about identity in community. Just as clay is valuable before being shaped, people are valuable before they fulfill roles in society. Worth is not dependent on productivity. The elderly, the young, the vulnerable, those outside conventional measures of success, all are whole as they are. This challenges the societal fixation on usefulness, showing that being itself carries dignity. The story touches on creativity as well. Many creators break themselves trying to force brilliance, shaping their work until it collapses. Yet some of the deepest art arises from simplicity, from allowing the material to speak. The potter's lesson is relevant here. Creativity is not always imposing vision, but listening to what already exists. This story also reshapes our relationship with time. The potter's endless shaping was driven by impatience, the need for results. But the untouched clay was timeless in its wholeness. We often rush, convinced we must achieve quickly. Yet, timelessness resides in what simply is. The clay's wholeness does not expire. Neither does ours. The untouched clay also teaches us about liberation from self-criticism. The potter's frustration grew from judgment. Each vessel not good enough. But in rest, judgment quieted and truth appeared. Much of our suffering arises not from life itself, but from judgment of it. When we quiet that voice, wholeness reveals itself naturally. This lesson deepens when applied to relationships. We often try to shape others into what we want them to be, pressing, criticizing, demanding. But relationships flourish when we allow others to be as they are. To see the untouched clay in another is to honor their wholeness without forcing change. There is also a teaching about trust in natural order. The clay was whole before the potter touched it. Life, too, has an inherent wisdom. When we over-control, we break harmony. Trusting the natural state of things can reveal beauty beyond our designs. The story also challenges the belief that value must be earned. The clay did not need to become a vessel to be worthy. In the same way, we do not need constant achievement to justify our existence. Our value is inherent, not conditional. This story can be applied to healing as well. Many try to heal by endlessly fixing themselves, shaping and reshaping their lives. But sometimes healing begins with rest, with seeing that we are not broken at the core. The untouched clay reveals that wholeness is not something we must create. It is something we must see. The untouched clay also speaks to freedom. When the potter stopped forcing, both he and the clay were free. Freedom comes not from control, but from release. To stop pressing, to stop demanding, to let things be, that is freedom. Finally, this story speaks to peace. Peace is not the absence of effort, but the presence of wholeness. The potter found peace not in the perfect vessel, but in the recognition that nothing was missing. We too can find peace when we stop reshaping ourselves endlessly and see the completeness already present in our being. The potter who left his clay untouched revealed that wholeness does not need to be manufactured, that beneath all our shaping and striving, there is a completeness already present. But from this recognition of inner sufficiency arises another question. If we are whole already, then what becomes of our expression, our voice, our song? Do we hold it back, waiting for others to approve, or do we allow it to flow, even when no one seems to be listening? This is the heart of the sparrow's story. A small bird who lifted her voice not for applause, but for the open sky. A sparrow perched on a branch, chest rising with the rhythm of her breath. Other birds gathered in flocks, singing to each other, calling for mates, announcing territory. But she turned instead toward the sky and released her song without seeking an audience. Her notes rose into the air, carried upward, unmeasured by judgment. The mountain across the valley caught the sound and returned it as echo, richer, fuller, more beautiful than any audience could have given. In singing freely, she discovered a harmony greater than approval. This story reveals a profound truth about expression. So much of human effort is directed toward being seen, heard, and validated. We create not simply to express, but to be applauded. We speak not only to share, but to be acknowledged. Yet the sparrow shows that the deepest expression does not need an audience. It flows naturally, and in flowing, it finds resonance with life itself. There is a teaching here about authenticity. The sparrow sang because singing was her nature, not because she sought recognition. In our lives, authenticity means living and speaking from what is true in us, even if no one else approves. When we wait for validation, we distort our voice. When we sing as we are, the echo of life returns something far more beautiful than applause. The mountain's echo is central. It represents the way the world itself responds when we are authentic. We may think no one hears us, yet life has its own way of returning our sincerity. Efforts rooted in truth ripple outward, often unseen, and return multiplied. Like the echo, the impact may not come directly from those we expect, but from unexpected directions. This story also challenges the fear of insignificance. Many hesitate to create, to speak, to act, believing their contribution too small, their voice too weak. Yet the sparrow did not measure her worth by volume. She simply sang. The echo revealed that even the smallest voice can awaken vast beauty when aligned with sincerity. Our task is not to be loud, but to be true. There is another depth here about freedom. When expression depends on approval, we are never free. We censor ourselves, tailor our words, mold our creativity to fit others' expectations. But when we express without demand, we are liberated. The sparrow's song was free precisely because it sought nothing. In that freedom, beauty emerged. This truth applies to art, work, and relationships. Artists who create only for approval lose their voice. Those who create for truth find resonance. Workers who strive only for recognition grow weary. Those who work from purpose feel sustained. Lovers who perform affection for validation suffocate. Those who love freely discover deeper connection. The sparrow teaches that true expression is complete in itself. The mountain's echo also symbolizes reflection. When we express authentically, the world mirrors back what is within us. The sparrow did not receive applause, but something more honest. The pure return of her own voice, transformed by the mountain's resonance. In our lives too, expression teaches us about ourselves. What we put into the world comes back, shaped by forces larger than us, revealing aspects of our voice we could not hear alone. This story also speaks about patience. The sparrow did not demand an instant response. She simply sang. The echo took time to return, and when it did, it was fuller than expected. In the same way, our actions may not yield immediate recognition, but over time, sincerity creates echoes. The delay is not emptiness, but deepening. There is a lesson here about joy. The sparrow's song was not calculated. It was joy made audible. Expression rooted in joy does not tire us because it is not dependent on results. In contrast, expression tied to recognition drains us because it always waits for reward. The sparrow teaches that joy itself is the reward, that expression aligned with nature is enough. The story also reshapes our view of solitude. Singing alone may feel pointless, but solitude can reveal connections hidden by crowds. The sparrow found communion not in listeners, but in the mountain. In solitude, we too may find deeper resonance, with nature, with silence, with ourselves. Solitude does not mean absence. It means space for authentic expression to meet the larger world. There is another teaching here about courage. To sing without listeners requires courage because it risks invisibility. Many of us fear that if no one sees or hears us, our lives mean nothing. But the sparrow reveals that meaning is not in numbers, but in authenticity. To live truthfully, even without recognition, is the greatest courage. This story also addresses the issue of comparison. Other birds sang to attract or compete, measuring themselves against each other. The sparrow released herself from comparison. Her song was not against others, but with the sky. We too find peace when we stop comparing our expression to others, and instead align with our own nature. The mountain's echo also points to collaboration with the world. The sparrow did not control the echo. It was a gift of the environment. Expression is not solitary, but interactive. When we express truthfully, The world responds in its own way, adding richness. Collaboration with life itself begins when we stop demanding and start trusting. This story can also be seen as a lesson in spirituality. Many think prayer or meditation must be performed for approval, by teachers, by communities, even by imagined judgment. But the sparrow teaches that authentic spiritual practice is not performance. It is expression of the heart, offered into the vastness. The echo is the response of life itself, deeper than any applause. The sparrow also embodies humility. She did not sing to be praised. She sang because that is what she was made to do. Humility frees us from the hunger of recognition. It allows expression to remain pure. Humility is not silence. It is expression without self-obsession. This story challenges the idea that success must be public. The sparrow's greatest reward was not being heard by others, but being echoed by the mountain. Some of life's deepest successes are private, quiet realizations, inner peace, unseen acts of kindness. They may not be applauded, but they resonate. The echo also symbolizes legacy. The sparrow's song did not vanish when it left her throat. It traveled, expanded, returned. In the same way, our words and actions ripple beyond us. Even if we never see their impact, they shape the world. Legacy is not built by performance, but by authenticity. There is also a teaching about alignment with nature. The sparrow did not fight the wind or demand the mountain's echo. She harmonized with what was present. True expression flows with conditions rather than against them. This harmony creates beauty without force. The sparrow's choice also reveals the power of simplicity. She did not seek complex arrangements, only her natural song. Simplicity carries clarity. In a world of noise and performance, the simple act of being true stands out. This story also teaches about presence. The sparrow sang to the sky in that moment, not for memory or future fame. Expression rooted in presence carries purity. Many of our struggles come from expressing for the future, for legacy, for record. But true expression belongs to the present. Finally, the sparrow's story teaches us about fulfillment. She needed no audience to feel complete. Fulfillment came from alignment with her nature. When we act from authenticity, joy is immediate. We do not need applause because the act itself is whole. The mountain's echo is a reminder. When we live truthfully, life itself reflects our song back to us in ways more beautiful than recognition could ever offer. The sparrow who lifted her voice to the sky without searching for an audience revealed that expression is complete when it is authentic. That fulfillment comes not from approval, but from resonance with life itself. Yet from this lesson of voice comes another, one that shifts from sound to silence, from outward expression to hidden wealth. For while we often search outside for what we lack, the truth may already be beneath us, waiting patiently to be uncovered. This is the story of a beggar who spent his days pleading for scraps while sitting unknowingly on treasure. A beggar lived outside the gates of a monastery. Each morning he stretched out his hands, asking passers-by for coins or food, and each evening he lay down upon a worn mat to sleep. The years passed in the same rhythm: hunger, pleading, small gifts, endless want. One day, in a moment of idleness, He shifted the mat beneath him, the fabric frayed, revealing threads glimmering in the sunlight. He pulled at them and discovered that the mat he had sat on all along was woven with strands of gold. What he had begged for in desperation was beneath him every day, unnoticed. This story pierces into one of the deepest illusions of human life, that what we seek is far away when it is often already here. The beggar believed himself poor, incomplete, dependent on others for survival. Yet the ground he lived upon held abundance. His suffering did not come from true absence, but from blindness. He did not need to acquire, he needed to see. The first teaching here is about overlooked abundance. We often search endlessly for fulfillment, convinced it lies in achievements, possessions, or recognition. Yet much of what we crave, peace, belonging, meaning, exists already within us. Like the beggar, we sit upon our treasures but fail to notice. We are trained to seek outside, forgetting that what is within us may be enough. This story also speaks to awareness. The beggar's mat did not change, his awareness did. The difference between poverty and wealth was perception. In our own lives, suffering often arises not from what we lack, but from what we fail to recognize. Awareness is the key that reveals hidden value. Without it, abundance remains invisible. There is a lesson here about self-worth. The beggar saw himself as nothing more than one who pleads. His identity was shaped by lack, yet beneath him lay proof that he had more than enough. Many people live with the same illusion, believing themselves unworthy, small, dependent. Yet, beneath the layers of doubt, every person carries dignity, strength, and value. To lift the mat is to recognize the gold of our own being. The story also challenges the restless search for external solutions. The beggar begged outside a monastery, a place associated with wisdom and abundance, but the treasure was not in the arms of monks. It was beneath him. Likewise, we often look to institutions, teachers, or external authorities for what can only be discovered within. Guidance matters, but no teacher can hand us the treasure if we refuse to lift the mat ourselves. This story carries another truth about habit. The beggar sat on the mat every day, blind to its nature, because habit dulled his perception. Familiarity can make us blind to value. We overlook the beauty of our relationships, the gift of health, the miracle of breath, because they are constant. The gold of daily life lies unnoticed because it is ordinary. Gratitude is the act of lifting the mat and seeing what has always been there. There is also a lesson about fear. Perhaps the beggar avoided inspecting the mat because he feared disappointment. Many of us avoid looking closely at ourselves for the same reason. We fear we will find nothing of value, but only by facing this fear can we discover the truth, that within us lies gold waiting to be seen. The beggar's story also illuminates the power of perspective. To one eye, the mat was ordinary, ragged, worn. To another, it was treasure. Perspective shapes reality. If we choose to see only lack, life feels empty. If we open to possibility, life reveals abundance. The mat itself was neutral. The meaning came from perception. This story carries a spiritual teaching about the nature of mind. In Buddhist thought, the mind is already luminous, already complete, but obscured by ignorance and delusion. The beggar's mat is like this mind, ordinary on the surface, golden within. Practice is not about adding something new, but about uncovering what is already there. The story also points to identity beyond circumstance. The beggar believed his poverty defined him, yet the discovery of gold revealed a deeper truth. Circumstances shift, but essence remains. Too often we confuse our temporary conditions with our permanent worth. The beggar's life reminds us that beneath changing circumstances lies an unchanging dignity. There is also a lesson about stillness. The discovery happened not during frantic begging, but during a quiet moment of shifting the mat. Stillness allows us to see what striving obscures. In our busyness, we overlook the treasures already with us. Rest is not wasted time. It is often the space where awareness deepens. This story also speaks to the futility of endless craving. The beggar could have begged his entire life without knowing that what he sought was beneath him. In the same way, chasing endlessly outside ourselves leads only to exhaustion. True fulfillment comes not from chasing, but from uncovering. There is a truth here about simplicity. The mat was ordinary, humble, overlooked, yet it held immense value. This reminds us that the greatest treasures often hide in simplicity. Joy, peace, and love are not complicated. They are simple, woven into the fabric of daily life. To see them, we must look without arrogance. The story also reveals the danger of self-forgetting. The beggar forgot to question his own assumptions. He never asked, "What am I sitting on?" Self-forgetting blinds us to what we carry. To remember ourselves is to awaken to our value. Forgetting keeps us trapped in illusions of lack. There is also a lesson about courage to look deeper. It takes courage to lift the mat, to question what we think is true. Many avoid this because it unsettles the narrative they live by. The beggar believed his identity was secure as one who lacks. Discovering the gold shattered that story. Awakening often disrupts comfort, but it replaces illusion with truth. This story also speaks about gratitude for the present moment. The beggar overlooked his mat because he longed for coins. Many of us overlook the present because we long for the future, but the present holds the gold. Gratitude is the act of seeing that this moment, however ordinary, contains what we need. The gold threads in the mat symbolize hidden potential. Many underestimate themselves, thinking they have nothing to offer. Yet within each person lies potential waiting to be uncovered. Talents, strengths, wisdom. The mat reminds us that our potential may be hidden beneath layers of neglect, but remains intact. Finally, the beggar's discovery points to liberation. Once he saw the gold, he no longer needed to beg. Awareness freed him from dependence. In the same way, recognizing our inherent worth frees us from the endless chase for validation. Liberation comes not from acquiring, but from awakening to what has always been ours. The beggar who discovered the gold threads beneath him revealed that wealth often hides in the very place we overlook, that what we seek outside may already rest quietly within our reach. Yet the lesson deepens further, for even when we uncover hidden treasures, the mind may still crave something larger, grander, more complete. The truth is that wholeness does not depend on size. The smallest detail can carry infinity if we are willing to see. This is where the story of the hermit begins. a man who found the vastness of the sky reflected in a single drop of spilled tea. The hermit lived alone in the mountains, his days marked by silence and simplicity. One morning, as he poured himself a cup of tea, a single drop slipped from the rim and landed on the floor. At first, he was about to wipe it away, but something caught his eye. In that tiny drop of liquid, perfectly round and glimmering in the light, he saw the reflection of the whole sky above, the clouds, the sun, the boundless blue. In that moment, he realized that even the smallest fragment could contain the entirety of the universe. This story reveals the nature of perception. We often believe that truth, meaning and beauty must be found in grand gestures, sweeping landscapes, or monumental achievements. But the hermit's discovery teaches that the infinite is present even in the smallest forms. A drop of tea, insignificant in itself, became a window to the entire sky. The lesson is not to search for bigger, but to look more deeply into what is already before us. There is a teaching here about attention. The hermit could have ignored the drop, dismissed it as trivial, something to be cleaned away. Instead, he paused. His attention transformed an accident into revelation. In our own lives, how much do we miss because we are too hurried, too distracted, too focused on the next task? Attention opens the door to wonder. Without it, even the grandest sky remains unseen. This story also speaks to the interconnectedness of all things. The drop did not contain the sky in substance, yet it reflected it fully. In the same way, each part of life mirrors the whole. A single conversation reflects the state of a relationship. A small choice reflects the pattern of a life. To see deeply into the particular is to glimpse the universal. The hermit's drop of tea also reveals the teaching of non-separation. The sky was not outside the drop. It was visible within it. This mirrors the spiritual truth that the vast and the small, the infinite and the finite, are not separate. Each carries the other. When we see this, we no longer dismiss small things as unimportant. Each moment becomes sacred. There is a lesson here about simplicity. The hermit's life was plain, and the revelation came not through ritual or study, but through a spilled drop. Simplicity often reveals truths hidden from the complex. In our pursuit of elaborate answers, we overlook the plain. The drop teaches that depth is not always in difficulty. Sometimes it waits in simplicity. This story also challenges the assumption that greatness lies far away. Many think fulfillment requires travel, wealth, or achievement. Yet the hermit discovered the vast sky in a drop at his feet. The greatest truths are often close, waiting to be noticed. Seeking far while ignoring near blinds us. Seeing near reveals far. There is a teaching here about humility. The hermit did not create the sky or the drop. He simply noticed. Humility opens us to receive what is already given. Pride blinds us, demanding that truth arrive on our terms. Humility allows us to see that even a drop of tea can carry revelation. The story also touches on the theme of presence. The hermit was present enough to see the reflection. Presence means being fully here, not lost in memory or anticipation. Without presence, the drop is just a stain. With presence, it is a mirror to infinity. This teaches us that presence transforms ordinary life into extraordinary awareness. The drop also reveals the teaching of impermanence. The reflection was beautiful but fleeting. The drop would soon evaporate, and the sky within it would vanish. Yet the impermanence did not lessen the beauty. It made it more precious. In the same way, the fleeting nature of our lives does not diminish them, it gives them value. There is another lesson here about perspective. The hermit's position allowed him to see the sky in the drop. A shift of angle, and the reflection would vanish. This shows that truth is not only about what exists, but about how we see. Perspective shapes experience. Sometimes we need only shift our angle to glimpse the infinite. The story also speaks to contentment. The hermit found wonder not in gaining more, but in seeing what was already there. Contentment arises not from accumulation, but from awareness. When we see deeply into the ordinary, the craving for the extraordinary softens. A single drop can dissolve endless longing. This story also illuminates the teaching of unity. The sky and the drop were not separate realities. One reflected the other. Similarly, the inner and outer worlds are not distinct. Our minds reflect the world, and the world reflects our minds. By seeing the reflection in the drop, the hermit glimpsed the unity of existence. There is also a lesson about patience. The hermit's life was long and quiet. Perhaps it was only after years of stillness that his attention was refined enough to see the reflection. Patience cultivates vision. Without patience, we pass by treasures unnoticed. Revelation often requires the slow seeing that only patience allows. The story teaches gratitude as well. What could have been irritation, a spill, became a gift. Gratitude transforms annoyance into wonder. In our lives, how often do accidents hide revelations? Gratitude allows us to receive them. Without gratitude, we curse the spill. With gratitude, we see the sky. The single drop also symbolizes the self. Each of us may feel small, insignificant, yet within us is reflected the vastness of life, the whole sky of existence. We are not separate from the universe, but expressions of it. To see ourselves clearly is to see that we carry the infinite within. This story also addresses the illusion of scarcity. The hermit needed only one drop to glimpse infinity. We often believe we need more time, more success, more recognition. But wholeness does not depend on quantity. Even the smallest moment can carry the fullness of truth. Scarcity is illusion, sufficiency is reality. There is also a lesson about mindfulness. The hermit's attention to the present moment revealed the reflection. Mindfulness is the practice of noticing fully. Without it, life becomes background noise. With it, every moment reveals depth. Mindfulness is the art of seeing the sky in the drop. Finally, this story speaks to wonder itself. The hermit's discovery reminds us that the universe is not hidden but reflected everywhere, waiting to be noticed. Wonder is not rare, it is constant. The challenge is not the absence of miracles, but our blindness to them. The hermit's drop of tea teaches us to see the vast in the small, the infinite in the fleeting, the whole sky in a single drop. The hermit who saw the whole sky in a single drop of tea revealed that vastness can be found within the smallest of things, that infinity hides in the details when our perception is clear enough to see. Yet the journey does not stop with still reflections. Sometimes truth does not wait for us to notice. Sometimes it shakes the air itself and makes its presence undeniable. This is where the story of the bell begins, a sound that broke silence without being struck, reminding all who heard it that truth requires no permission to speak. On the edge of a valley stood an abandoned temple. Its walls crumbled, its roof bent with years, and its great bronze bell hung silent in the tower. Dust gathered, and vines crept across the stones. Generations had passed without hearing its voice. One night, as storms rolled in and thunder cracked across the sky, a violent tremor shook the valley. The vibration reached the bell, and its hollow body released a sound so deep and resonant that it carried across the mountains. Villagers paused, dropped what they held, and listened. Many wept, not because the bell had been struck by human hands, but because the truth of its voice had returned without invitation. This story reveals a profound teaching about the nature of truth. Like the bell, truth may lie dormant, forgotten, or ignored, but it does not vanish. When the right conditions come, it resounds. It does not need to be defended, begged for, or forced. Truth exists independently of human effort. We may silence it temporarily, but the world itself will eventually give it voice. The bell's ringing teaches us that truth is self-revealing. We often think we must prove truth, argue for it, defend it endlessly. Yet, truth is like sound waiting in the bronze. It needs only the right vibration to be released. When the storm came, the bell spoke on its own. Similarly, when life shakes us, truth emerges, even if we tried to suppress it. There is a lesson here about inevitability. The villagers may have forgotten the bell, but the storm remembered. Truth does not disappear with neglect. It abides, waiting. We may distract ourselves, deny it, or cover it, but eventually conditions will align and truth will declare itself. The bell rang because thunder demanded it. In our lives, storms often call forth truths we tried to hide. The story also speaks to awakening. The villagers were shocked into awareness by the unexpected sound. They had walked past the silent bell for years, blind to its presence. But when it rang, they remembered. In the same way, awakening often comes suddenly, uninvited, shaking us from complacency. A word, an event, a loss, a moment of beauty. It strikes us like thunder, and suddenly what was forgotten returns with power. The bell also symbolizes the voice of wisdom. It had been silent for so long that people assumed its voice was gone. Yet when the storm came, it rang more deeply than ever. This shows that wisdom does not decay with silence. Even if neglected for years, it remains ready to speak. We too carry wisdom within us that may lie dormant until life's storms awaken it. There is another lesson here about vulnerability. The bell was struck not by hands, but by thunder. It did not control when it would sing. Similarly, truth often arises when we least expect it, when circumstances shake us open. Vulnerability allows us to resonate with life rather than resisting it. The bell could not choose the storm, but it could not resist singing when the storm arrived. The villagers' tears revealed the emotional power of truth. They wept not only because of the sound, but because of what it reminded them, the presence of something greater, something beyond control. Truth touches us not only in the mind, but in the heart. It bypasses argument and speaks directly to the core of being. This story also teaches about impermanence. The temple was abandoned, the bell forgotten. Yet even in ruin, beauty emerged. Impermanence does not erase value. Even what seems broken or discarded can still carry meaning. The bell did not need restoration to speak. It needed only resonance. In the same way, even in our brokenness, truth can resound through us. The storm itself plays a role in the teaching. Thunder is disruptive, frightening, uncontrollable. Yet it awakened the bell. This reminds us that difficult circumstances often bring forth clarity. Storms of life, loss, failure, upheaval, shake us until our hidden truths sound. We may resist storms, but they often reveal what silence conceals. There is a spiritual depth here as well. The bell's voice carried across the valley, reaching all who could hear. Truth is not private. It belongs to all. When it rings, it transcends boundaries of individual ownership. No one claimed the bell's song. It was simply there, a gift for anyone willing to listen. The bell also teaches us about timing. For years, it was silent, and then, suddenly, it rang. Truth reveals itself in its own time. We cannot force it, nor can we prevent it forever. Our task is not to control the timing, but to remain receptive when it comes. There is also a lesson about authenticity. The bell did not try to sound like anything else. It rang with its own voice, pure and unaltered. Authentic truth cannot be disguised forever. When conditions strike, it emerges exactly as it is. Our task is not to fabricate truth, but to live so openly that when life strikes us, our sound is clear. This story also points to resilience. Despite abandonment, weather, and time, the bell had not lost its capacity to sing. Resilience does not mean avoiding silence or hardship. It means retaining the ability to ring when the moment comes. Within each of us lies resilience that may lie quiet for years, but is never destroyed. The villager's weeping also reveals the human longing for truth. We may bury it under distraction, comfort, and noise, but when truth arrives, we recognize it instantly. The sound of the bell awakened something ancient in them. Truth does not need explanation to be felt. It resonates in the heart. This story can also be read as a lesson about the voice of nature. The storm and the bell together created music without human effort. Wisdom often comes from nature itself: storms, rivers, mountains. When we listen, we hear truths that words cannot capture. The bell rang because life itself demanded it, not because a person commanded it. Finally, the bell teaches that truth does not ask for permission. It does not wait for recognition or approval. It does not need ceremony or ritual. When the storm comes, it speaks. And when it speaks, all who hear are changed. The abandoned temple became sacred again for a moment, not because of human design, but because truth resounded through the valley, uninvited, unstoppable, and undeniable. The bell that rang without hands showed that truth does not need human effort or invitation, that when the right conditions arrive, what is real will declare itself. Yet there is another lesson, softer and quieter, about timing itself. Not all things reveal their purpose through sudden thunder or dramatic resonance. Some truths unfold slowly, in their own rhythm, without rushing, without forcing. This is where the story of the cloud begins, a drifting form in the sky that did not strain to rain, yet when the time was right, water fell and the fields blossomed. A cloud moved gently across the horizon, carried by currents unseen. It did not demand to release its drops, did not strain to hurry the cycle. For a while it remained light, drifting aimlessly, appearing to serve no purpose. Farmers looked upward, some impatient, longing for rain to feed the soil, others content to wait. And then, in its own time, the cloud released its burden. Rain poured softly over the earth, soaking the fields, filling the streams, reviving life. Without rushing, without calculation, the cloud fulfilled its role. This story reveals the wisdom of patience. In a world where urgency dominates, we are taught to measure worth by constant productivity, as though every moment must prove its usefulness. The cloud teaches the opposite. Purpose does not come from forcing, but from unfolding. Rain does not fall because the cloud tries harder. It falls because the conditions align. In our own lives, growth, healing, and creativity follow this same law. The lesson begins with trust in timing. The farmers who looked upward could not command the cloud. It released when it was ready, not when demanded. Life, too, has its own timing that resists our control. We may long for answers, success, or transformation, but forcing often creates frustration. Trust means recognizing that what is meant to arrive will come when its season has ripened. There is also a teaching here about effortlessness. The cloud does not strain to hold or to release. It allows itself to be moved by larger currents. In contrast, we often resist the flow, gripping tightly to control outcomes. The cloud shows another way, to allow life's currents to carry us, releasing when the moment is ripe. This is not passivity, but alignment, a trust that larger rhythms are at work. The story speaks to the futility of comparison. One cloud may rain quickly, another may drift for weeks. Yet each has its place. We often look at others, jealous of their apparent speed, success, or transformation. But like clouds, our journeys have different seasons. Comparison blinds us to our own timing. Fulfillment comes when we honor our path, not when we mimic another's. The rain's arrival also reveals the teaching of natural generosity. When the cloud released, it did not choose where drops would fall. The fields, the streams, the smallest flowers all received equally. Generosity is not about calculation, but about allowing abundance to flow. In our lives, when we act from fullness, our giving is like rain, natural, unforced, nourishing without discrimination. There is another truth here about rest. The cloud drifted before it rained. Its wandering was not wasted time. Rest, too, is not wasted. It is preparation, gathering, aligning. Many condemn rest as laziness, but rest is often the unseen work that precedes fruitfulness. The cloud does not rush, it gathers until the time of release. The story also touches on surrender. The cloud does not know where it will be carried. It surrenders to the wind, to the unseen patterns of the atmosphere. In the same way, surrender in our lives does not mean giving up, but trusting forces larger than ourselves. Surrender is an act of humility, an acknowledgement that we are not the sole authors of outcomes. This lesson applies to creativity. Many creators force ideas, straining for inspiration. But creativity, like rain, often arrives when it is ready. A period of drifting, of waiting, of apparent emptiness may be necessary. When the time comes, the rain of inspiration falls abundantly, filling the fields of imagination. Forcing only dries the soil. The cloud also teaches us about letting go. To hold its water forever would be to stagnate. Its purpose is fulfilled only in release. We too are called to let go of fears, possessions, expectations, so that life can flow through us. Hoarding weakens, release nourishes. The cloud fulfills itself in letting go. There is also a lesson here about resilience. After the rain falls, the cloud does not mourn its loss. It continues, transforming, joining again into the cycle, rising once more, as vapor life is cyclical, not linear. What seems like an ending is part of renewal. The cloud does not cling to its form. It trusts the cycle. This story also reveals the teaching of sufficiency. The cloud did not rain constantly. Fields need both sun and rain, both dryness and moisture. In the same way, sufficiency in life is not about constant giving or constant achieving. It is about balance. Too much rain drowns the soil, too little leaves it barren. Sufficiency honors the rhythm of enough. The villager's gratitude after the rain points to the power of timing. A gift given at the right time nourishes deeply. Words of encouragement, acts of kindness, gestures of love. These are rain when offered in season. Timing makes ordinary acts extraordinary. The cloud's rain teaches us to trust not only in what we give, but in when we give. The story also teaches us about presence. The cloud did not live in anxiety about when it would rain. It drifted in its moment, and rain came naturally. Anxiety steals presence, keeping us fixed on future outcomes. The cloud embodies presence, resting, drifting, releasing when the time was right. There is also a teaching here about impermanence. Clouds shift, form, dissolve. They do not cling to permanence. We too must accept impermanence, embracing the beauty of passing forms. Impermanence is not loss, but movement. The cloud's rain nourishes because it changes. The story touches on humility as well. The cloud does not boast of its rain. It gives quietly, disappears, and allows the cycle to continue. True service does not demand recognition. Like the cloud, it simply fulfills its nature. The fields blossoming after the rain remind us of unseen impact. The cloud may not witness every flower that blooms, yet its rain sustains them. In our lives, we may never see the full results of our actions, but unseen impact is no less real. Every kindness, every act of patience, every moment of generosity nourishes life beyond what we can measure. Finally, the cloud teaches us about alignment with nature's rhythm. It rains when it must, not when demanded. Life, too, unfolds according to larger rhythms. Our task is not to force, but to align, to drift when drifting is needed, to release when the moment comes, to trust that fields will bloom when conditions align. The cloud that never tried to rain shows us that the deepest fulfillment is found not in striving, but in trusting the rhythm that carries us, letting life flow through us at the right time and in the right way. And so the journey comes to rest. From the monk at the lake, who found clarity only when still, to the bamboo that grew in silence, to the traveler who discovered peace on a simple bench, each story has carried the same truth in different shapes. When we stop grasping, when we release the endless search, life reveals itself. The falling petal, the empty cup, the fisherman's surrender, the silent flute, the monk asleep yet awake, the untied boat, the stone turned into a seat, the candle already surrounded by light, the tree shading without asking, the raindrop becoming the river, the untouched clay, the sparrow's song, the beggar's hidden gold, the drop of tea reflecting the sky, the bell ringing without hands, and the cloud drifting until rain, each whispers the same lesson. Nothing is missing. Nothing needs to be forced. Everything you long for is already here, waiting for you to see. Before you drift into sleep, I'd love to know which story spoke most deeply to you. Share it in the comments. It might be the very reflection someone else needs to hear tonight. And if these stories touched your heart, if they brought you even a little stillness, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. There are many more journeys waiting, and with one simple click, you'll always have a place to return when you need calm, clarity, or a reminder that when you stop searching, everything truly comes.